Hello everyone, I'm very glad that you listened to my story. Please give me a follow and like the video if you enjoyed it. Feel free to comment and provide feedback so I can improve the sound quality. Yes, I will now continue the unfinished story. Chapter 46. TL, second part of chapter T.I.Tle is which translates into a kind of bada.s boast with a pompous connotation. Thirds. The pincushioned great snake monster is still turning and twisting about in anguish. Each time it moves, blood splatters and flow out from its wound, and in its thrashing, it destroyed its own throne and the surrounding hive-like structure. Its black body has already been dyed red from its own blood, and with its remaining eye it leered with deep hate at the tea-color-haired girl clad in lightning. "Do you hate me?" Mikoto read its thought from the look it gave off. The normally soft-hearted her at this moment has turned into a very cool girl with a stern face. "Then what of the monsters you called toys, the toys you turned into mob fodder? Who should they hate?" Thunder roared as if echoing her statements. Bluish-white lightning turned into a lightning net and under her command enveloped the great snake monster. Shortly after, sounds of electrocution exploded, and following it is the hissing of the monster. The net practically grilled the monster as there's a faint smell of grilled meat in the air along with traces of roasting along the monster's scales. It writhed and struggled so as to get away from the net of pain. This is futile however because the net isn't a fisher's or snake's net, it's controlled by the calculations inside Mikoto's head. So long as she computes, the net is here to stay until she stops it. The monster is now at a point of despair. It got tortured by Wu Yan and now that it's in its true form, it was planning on torturing the F.U.C.K out of Wu Yan, but just as it startled Wu Yan with its ginormous body, this girl jumping out of nowhere threw him back into the maximum fun chamber. Even when its subordinates died, even when his humanoid form exploded, and now even when he revealed his true form, the monster didn't taste despair but now. Just a mere little girl, a little girl. How can I die in her hands? Rover. The cry that came out is no longer the cries of agony but feral cries. The monster has completely gone berserk. The only thing in its mind right now is to kill. Kill the girl who brought it much misery. It whipped out its tail. As the tail is in motion, it brought down the walls and debris in its path as it made its way towards Mikoto. With that move, the oppressive wind started blowing towards Mikoto. It almost made her lose balance, what with her being less than 40 kilograms. Electric sparks flashed under her foot and through attraction force she steadied herself and turned her palm against the ceiling before pulling herself towards it, dodging the tail whip. Hinajiku. Its tail is very long, that's why even if it weren't as long as the field, the tail whip could reach bystanders if it wanted to. But Wu Yan swept Hinajiku off her feet and dodged with a leap. Seeing that the two dodged without a hic, Mikoto, who is currently suspended upside down on the ceiling, let out a relieved breath. She didn't notice her skirt is following the rules of gravity and the panties that Wu Yan personally put on flashed out. Wu Yan wished he could blind the snake so bad at this moment. Hinajiku is no problem since she's a girl, but to be seen by a Chuyuni disgusting snake is very aggravating. This is unforgivable. The snake must die. Mikoto. Make snake kebab out of the monster. He shouted at her, wishing that she would notice her upskirt already. It's okay if she shows him, but don't show another person. No, a snake. Oh, you're so noisy. Just sit tight and watch me. She waved her hands and shot out 2 lightning spears. Hitting the body of the snake. The spears are quick but they trade up offense power, so against a foe of this size the impact is negligible unless it's a shot to the eyes like the one from before, otherwise it's just a few moments of paralyzed. As I thought, an iron sand attack would be. Not letting her finish, the snake's head rammed towards her. She calmly stretched out her arm and swung like Tarzan to another side. TL, raw, says Tarzan, not improvised. Bam. The stone wall turned into debris and the rocks rained down. Pulling its head out of the wall, it hissed and charged at Mikoto again. Oh. You're so annoying. The stream of mindless attacks in addition to its size forced her into constant retreat, not giving her the time to charge up her attacks. This is frustrating to her because she ends a commensurate amount of time for bigger attacks. Railgun who can't attack is not a happy railgun. This kind of deadlock would only be enjoyable to Wu Yan who has an. Mikoto, do you need help? He's dodging the attacks as well with Hinajiku in his arms. From the looks of it he looks like he's enjoying himself. G.O.D, he really is an uke, isn't he? TL, author, please. I don't need your help. I am. Railgun, yes I know. Hurry up and settle the creep then, Railgun. He's still holding the fact that Snake Monster saw her pantsu against it. How he wished he could cook the monster. You little. Sparks crackled out, and under Wu Yan's sarcasm she has snapped. Her aggro values went max and now it's focused on the monster. Waving her hand at the iron sword still stuck on its body, the swords shook and like a vampire began to agitate the wounds on its body. The sudden jolt of pain killed its momentum and sent it crashing into a pile of rubble no far away as it shrieked in pain. Chance. She had an ecstatic face as she stood on the ground and pointed at the monster. Iron sand poured out, turning into groups of sword and then raining down on the monster. Flinching at the black needles, it dodged to the side. It may be fine if it's death by bleeding out, but death in excruciating pain is another matter. Too bad the swords are controlled by Mikoto, and thus the swords continued to stab at the monster. Dodging by rolling towards the side, it then deflected the blades with its tail swings. Stay put. Pulling her hand aimed at the snake, all the iron sand swords were pulled out. The monster sans iron sword had blood spurting out like a geyser, going hua-hua. Manipulating the iron swords with two hands, the sword coalesced into a big ma.s and like a wave washed over its head, forming a whirlpool with it at the center in a way similar to black clouds. EY. Swords came out of the black iron cloud shooting at the monster. If it looked like a porcupine before, it looked like a C.O.C.K now. The swords poured down and made it look like a rooster comb. With searing pain coming from its head, the monster went into a more frantic frenzy. It didn't slow down from the amount of injuries already inflicted. In fact, it became even more fervent in its A.S. assaults. Like a whip it thrashed around, forming mirages, and struck against her. Lifting her hand, the iron sand cloud dispersed and came to her side, forming a shield to block the attack. The ground isn't so lucky, however. Under its attacks the ground shattered into pieces. The ground she stood upon has now turned into a big crater. The attacks flowed like raindrop, unstopping. It steeled its resolve to beat Mikoto into a B.L.O.O.D.Y pulp. Slamming and ramming the shield with its tail, it planned to send her to Hades. Crack. The iron shield started giving away, tensing up at the sound. White lightning arced and she pulled herself to the side hastily. The shield shattered and the tail slammed down, making the crater even bigger than it was before. Now she's really having a headache. The snake is strong for sure, but it had quite a bit of distance compared with her. If it were any normal level 60, it would have probably died under the combos she performed. However, the monster is simply too great in size, and the normally lethal iron sand swords that have tasted its blood for Lord knows how many times didn't kill it, and the blood that flowed out can be measured in terms of pools instead of puddles, and still it lives, and apparently still in combat-worthy status. To use a game A.N.A.Logi, this monster would qualify as the most CLA.S.sickle meat shield, high endurance, high HP. At this rate, forget bleeding out. Adding a few more holes and letting out more blood probably won't be the end of this thing. Her other techniques are anti-personnel, but against this monster the attacks aren't very effective, so they won't work if the objective is bringing it down. Unbeknownst to her, the snake monster is relying on going berserk to sustain itself. It is a fact that it hasn't fell because of its size. A gap of 9 levels is still a gap. Berserk, it doesn't care about its body anymore, as long as she is defeated. If it doesn't die, then it will now stop attacking. And that is how we have this situation, a deadlock. Unless a one-hit kill comes in. It just so happens that Mikoto has such a skill. Standing on a perfectly fine ground, she glared at the monster who's turning its head to reaffirm its target. In an instant lightning raged all over her body. As the lightning flashed and crackled about her making bright blue flares, her hair and clothing began to flutter as if it's blown by the wind, Biribiri reverberated incessantly. She stretched out her hand and a coin is seen to be in her fingers, the Amy's no other than the monster. Tossing the coin, it bounced into the air and at the same time lightning flowed around and outwards towards her locked thumb, it condensed into a white singularity. The snake came hissing at her, she ignored it and triggering with her lightning the coin that floated up in the air came down into her locked thumb under M attraction. Giving the snake that's about to reach her a glare, she focused her gaze and released her thumb. An orange light shot towards the monster, piercing its brain, its body, and its tail before flying yonder. Chapter 47. Ding. Congratulations on leveling up. Current level is 46. Ding. Congratulations on leveling up. Current level is 47. Ding. Congratulations on leveling up. Current level is 48. Ding. Congratulations on leveling up. Current level is 49. Awestruck by Mikato's form, Wu Yan lost his thoughts for a moment there. What an amazing sight to behold. When is Mikato most eye-catching? 1 out of 10 would say that it's when she's being tsundere, another 1 out of 10 would say it's when she's holding Gakoda, the remaining 8 out of 10 would absolutely concur with one answer, it's when she's using railgun. This astonishing spectacle he has only ever seen on screen is now unfolding in front him. Now that he has seen this awesome demonstration he can't help feeling impressed once more, how domineering, how heroic, how handsome. Compared to his elation of jumping levels, his awe outweighs his joy. What can he say? Despite defeating someone 15 levels above him he has only risen by 4 levels, the gap between tiers are just getting tougher and tougher. TL, every summon gets the same 100% experience points. Mikato on the other hand didn't rise in levels at all, he can't reach tier 6 and she can't reach tier 8, looks like the grind is real. So cool. Even Hinagika can't help admiring this scene, one should know she's a cool person as well, so if she says so then it must be, damn.n cool. Yan, here. Going to his side she gave him a jade, the snake's dead so now the jewel of Heavenly Palace is naturally retrieved by her. TL, yep, the jewel turns out to be jade in nature, perhaps something like this. Finally. One day and night they have went through various turmoils to get this thing. From the wall monster to the wolf monster and then the yokai army, the tree monster and then the snake monster. It's a short but eventful trip, that's for sure. The two girls went pensive, relative to him the two suffered in psychological terms even more. The slaughter changed them, at least Mikato could now dirty her hands with the blood of monster who can only do harm, if it's killing another person, he still thinks that is unlikely for the time being. Their returns however were not any lesser, from the start he's just a level 30 tier 4 and now in a day he has reached LV 49 on the cusp of entering tier 6. Not to mention he net himself a great profit of 8.3 mil, no 8.2 mil item points. Mikato also level up to 69. The jades in their hand, now they only need to pass the thing over to Hatsuho in exchange for the mysterious crystal fragment and their quest here would be done. Yep, totally worth it. Inspecting the snake he arrived at its head. He sighed as he looked at what used to be a whole monster, the railgun blew a hole right through it from head to tail, perhaps even in the last moment of its live the snake didn't know what happened to him. Ding, 50,000 item points obtained. Selling the body he got 50,000 item points and that concluded the ceiling barrier adventure and at the same time it signals the end of his short time here on Hate the Combat Butler's world. Yan, I will return this to you, sorry I didn't use it during this battle. She returned the bottle of resplendent breath to him while awkwardly smiling. Why are you giving it to me? You keep it, it's to protect your life during dire times. He just shot a glance when he saw this, With 8.25 mil of item points, would one care about a bottle of resplendent breath? You keep it, isn't it more useful that way? She retorted back at him with a bit of sa.s.s, she sounded like she's standing with the truth behind her. Giving her an evil eye, he shot back at her. With my item points right now, do I still lack anything? I think it'd be best if you hold on to it, don't insist on this simply because you can't die. To revive you requires summoning points, and summoning points I do not have much to do so. His summoning points is 11,000 right now, and her required amount of summoning points back then was 70,000, so it's a fact he can't pay the dues right now. What's this now? If you die, then won't I die as well? I am looking out for myself here. A bit abnormal, she insisted. It's true she felt dauntless because she could be revived and she had the impulse to try something reckless. Of course it's just an impulse, she wouldn't go out of her way to die. From here one can see just how pa.s.cyanate she is to seek out thrill. If this stupid guy here don't want it, here Hinajiku, you take it? She turned her head over to Hinajiku in an agitated way. It's as though rejecting her goodwill is something foolish. He's at a loss of words at her. Me? I don't need it as well. She shook her hands. After this mission, when I go to the other world, I would be in the same boat as you, so I wouldn't need it. Have you thought it through yet? Hinajiku? He questioned her resolve. To follow us means to leave your parents behind, you know, and your sister as well for that matter. Can you do that? Flinching at this, she mused for a while before smiling at him. Yeah, I want to choose my path for myself once. Besides, you said it. Once you guys leave this place, the world would be in a frozen state, so there's no need to worry for them. Choosing your own path, is it? He went silent, thinking about something. What's with you being so naggy? You have something to say about this? Folding her arms in front of her, Mikoto looked upset that he's doubting her. She already said it, she wants to choose her path. Why are you being so wishy-washy? How's this wishy-washy? He looked like he was about to retort with his "I am doing this for you attitude. I'm just trying to listen to her wishes. How's this being wishy-washy? And you still have the galls to retort." A spark flashed across her forehead as she jeered at him. "When you summoned me to this world, you didn't even ask for my opinion. Do I not have parents as well?" Jerking the corners of his lip, he conceded. "Touché. Regarding her opinions, he's pretty interested, because if she really had a lot of qualms about going to Silveria with him, then he can't force her no matter how much he wants to be with her." When she said yes, his feeling could be described as pleased and joyful. A woman who is willing to follow you to the edges of the sky and corners of the seas, such a mature connotation. TL, inset Lenny face. Thinking up to this point, his satisfaction with the proceedings is basically written on his face. Looking at that smug grin of his, she gave him a cold humph. "Of course this is not for you, it's so that I can protect Mikoto." "Protect Mikoto? What an absurd excuse. The person in question is more than 2 times your level, little girl." "Protect me?" Wincing ever so slightly at her statement, she then pat her flat chest with confidence. "Don't worry about me, I am very strong and I can protect myself." "I'm not talking about that." She walked to her side before pulling her arm. "I am protecting you from being solved by this wolf. If I don't go, who knows what this wolf would do to you when you guys are alone." "Ho. How?" Raising her brows, she blushed after she understood the implication of her words. With mouth wide agape and jutting eyes, he defended himself. "That's false accusation, I'm no wolf." "Hinajiku, stop putting labels on me. You still have the guts to say you're not." She clenched her teeth as she glared at him with tinged cheeks. "You even stripped our clothes and washed out body. What's stopping you from going further than that?" Case study being revisited, Mikoto leered at him before agreeing with her. "That's right, Hinajiku, you must protect me from him, you must not let him be alone with him." He can't raise any arguments at this point. Wavy tears flowed down his face. He can't defend himself, curse his bad track records. The two spent about half a day to make their way out of the cave. The first thing they saw upon exit is Hatsuho, who's staring at them with a blank expression. It's like she saw her ancestors or something with that disbelieving face. She mumbled something illogical as she looked at them. Era, why would I be having such a weird dream? This must be a mistake, they're not my cute Isumi. Why would I be seeing something so oddly lucid here? Black lines ran down the trio's head. Curling his lips, he took out the jade and said it over to her. Madam Sajinomiya, we have not failed the mission and has now returned with the jade. But Hatsuho treated him like a mere illusion and continued mumbling, her degree of ignoring him is through the roof. His tone changed into one of exasperation and it brought back Hatsuho in addition to startling Hinagiku and Mikoto. Can one blame him? When conversing with Isumi's mum, one needs a bit of strength to do so. She murmured after seeing the jade in his hand. You three are back. All in one piece. NN, we are fine and has returned safely. By the way, we destroyed the monsters inside, so for the time being your family wouldn't have to worry about the ceiling barrier for now. Stroking the jade, she didn't say anything. On her face, however, is the most beautiful smile he has seen on her since coming here. She grasped the jade and placed it against her cheeks while tightly closing her eyes like she's caressing a treasure of hers. The trio understand this behavior is not for the clan or because it's a treasure of the clan, it's purely for her own daughter. It's a manifestation of her desire to protect her from her own spiritual power. Isumi has a great mother. Returning from her happiness, she gave a heartfelt bow to the trio. My deepest gratitude, I'm truly grateful for your assistance. You're welcome, it's just a matter of alignment of interest. Rubbing his nose, he felt a bit awkward, he's not used to dealing with this kind of matter, so he's a bit coy. Hatsuho nodded with a gentle smile before taking out mysterious crystal fragment and giving it to him. This is what you seek and now it's yours. Wu Yan-kun, I'm sure if it's you, you would be able to manage it. Receiving the crystal, he lifted it overhead to inspect this crystal with one eye closed. Under the sunlight, the crystal released a warm glow as if signaling the start of a new beginning. Chapter 48. Phew. Beds are more comfortable after all. Lying down on his bed, Wu Yan snuggled his face against the cotton blanket. If this were a cute chick, then that would have been refreshing. But since this is him, let's just say he looked disgusting to say the least. He doesn't care if he look vulgar or not. Stuck in that G.O.D forsaken place for slightly over a day, he missed his bed. In fact, anyone would have behaved as he did after a day and night at such a place, sleeping the monsters and whatnot. Technically speaking, however, this bed is not his, it's Hinagiku's family's, he's just a tenant, so to speak. It's not just him, Hinagiku and Mikoto are now catching some Z's in their room as well. They even ignored Hinagiku's mum, who tried asking their whereabouts. This is the extent of how tired they're from the trip. Like a little brat, he kept nuzzling on the bed before stopping that R.E.T.A.R.D.E.D appearance. Lying on his back, he motioned his hand and two crystal appeared on his hand. Beep, 2 pieces of mysterious crystal fragment detected, merge. This notification has rang once and many times more after receiving the last piece from Heitusho. Since this is Mission 3's completion requirement, finding and merging the pieces of mysterious crystal fragment, then it's reasonable that this happened. He didn't know if he would be made to leave the world at once after finishing Mission 3, that's why he chose not to merge yet. But during his journey home, he inquired the system and found out that one would only go back to Silveria if one so chooses. With nothing much to worry about, he chose to merge it as soon as possible. Mission 3's reward sounds so tempting. One could pick a reward randomly from equipments, items, abilities, and summons. It's tempting because if one were to be lucky, then it's the jackpot, baby. Hacks are items like S-grade equipments, cheating items, or a demi-G.O.D tier shoujo. Calling those rewards good would be far too much an understatement. if he got those he would quite happily jump off a building. TL, no idea why he would jump off a building either, probably metaphoric rather than literal purpose. If he struck out and got some chicken s.h.i.t item, then he has to taste the salt and move on. Had the system not said that inside the summon there's only demi g.o.d tier as the upper boundary and no g.o.d tier, then he would probably have used the reward by now. Even now, he still wants to try it out. It has a kind of indescribable charm to it that one finds irresistible. Under the notion of I don't know what I will get, his unsteady feeling in his opinion is a kind of thrill, and he likes it. Author note, that's why I said you're an uke. TL, uke as you recall is the bottom b.i.t.c.h in a yaoi relationship. Pondering with the gem in hand, he grew more and more tempted by the lucky draw, his hands are itching and he immediately chose to complete the mission. Right after he chose merge option, the two mysterious crystal fragment left his hand and floated up in the air. Under his astonished sight the crystals collided together with a sudden burst of speed. There's not much abnormal sound or sight after that. At the point of impact the mysterious crystal fragments merged as naturally as water. In an instant a completed mysterious crystal appeared before him and dropped into his hands. Ding! Mission 3 completed. Random reward from equipment, items, abilities, or summon. Please confirm. The system menu didn't even wait for his permission and opened up on its own. A projection appeared and a lit frame appeared below status and above equipment. It had begin written on it and it piqued him very much indeed. Barring those with learning disabilities, one would know what to do at this point. He pressed begin without further ado. The lighted frame then switched between equipment, items, abilities, summons in rapid fashion. He got excited just from seeing it as a weird tension set in. Once the frame stopped he's a bit disappointed because it stopped on items. Are points precious? He can tell one with perfect resolve, h.e.l.l yeah it's precious. He only has 1000 equipment points, 81,000 ability points, 11,000 summoning points, and 8.25 mil item points. He's lacking in everything but item points. His point is enough to buy any one of a random half sample of the item population. Basically, the thing he needs most is definitely not item points. And what is reward? An item from item list? TL, I bet 10 internet cookies if system had a personification it would be singing Trillalol. This led to him being a bit glum. S-grade equipments? Haxer powers? Demi G.O.D Shaojos. Nothing but ephemeral mackerel clouds. Facing the item list that popped out he pressed begin without much care and just let it run its course. He went back into planning his next move when he gets back to Silveria. At the start, he's super weak and getting stronger was his main focus, so he chose to stay around Giant Beast Forest, doing mercenary missions and systems mission, farming mobs and leveling up. Now, after a month of grinding in Instance Dungeon, TL, suggested a.n.a.logi for transcript world as per a commentator whom I forgot the name. Just mention yourself in the comment section so people can throw cookies at you will ya. SK8, the combat butler coupled with the time ratio of 100:1 this world to Silveria's, computing would leave one with the result that since Lulu went home some 2 months plus minus has pas.said. TL, someone check the author on his workings please. He doesn't have anyone particular that is related or close to him. To go somewhere he must first have somewhere in mind. F.U.C.K. Let's go visit Lulu. But would she welcome them? If it's Lulu, she probably would. Same should apply for Feifei. But if it's her family, perhaps they would have their guards up at people of undetermined origin. If he were to go visit Lulu like this, is it really, TL, in case anyone wonders? Feifei already said it, the strongest one in their family is a tier 9 previous head, it follows that they should be tier 8, tier 7, and so forth as well. By his side however he only has Mikoto. If he were to rashly rush in he would only find himself knocking on death's door. Wait, I'm not there to pick a fight, no? Why did I even think about this? I am just going over there to hang out with Lulu. He retorted back at his own out-of-sense thought with a bitter laugh. Maybe he really fought too many battles until his mind has been conditioned to this mentality. This is unforgivable. I am an otaku male, my sacred obligation is having thoughts about 2D shoujos. That's correct, think carefully about who's the next summon, that's the most important thing. I think it was Hinajuku or something. Letting his mind wander around again, a card fell on him, surprising him from his musings. At the same time, the system rang. Ding, obtained ability get. Ability get? What's that? Bewildered at the card in his hand, he looked it over. It's all white with nothing on it, plain white. He used the system's probing function to check its usage. That's right, the probing function is not limited to checking level, it can also be used to check the function of items and equipment like an appraisal. He was stunned by the result. Ability get, TL. After using it, the user would be able to get one of the abilities of any one of his summons. The power of this ability would be 1/10 the original's, item points 300,000. Obtain one of the summon's ability? There's such an item inside the list. He opened the list once more, and after a bunch of search he actually found ability get, a 300,000 item points item, so expensive. But it's worth its weight in gold, that's for sure. Holding the card in hand, he grinned. Didn't really had much hope in the first place, but to think he would get something worth 300,000 item points, his luck is quite good this time. If he were to obtain this before the item points landfall, then he would be even more joyous. It is heavens apart from the S-grade equipment in his mind, but it could be exchanged for an ability, so it's acceptable. He only has Mikato as his summon right now, and she only has one Electromaster LV5 as her power, so there's only one logical outcome if he were to use this card now. 1/10 of Mikato's power? That's around the stage of a LV4, isn't it? LV4 Electromaster with 300,000 item points, totally worth it? Mikato's ability is also sold within the system at a price of 30,000 ability points. Alternatively, one could progress from LV1 to LV3 and then LV4, summing up to 30,000 ability points more or less as well. A 300,000 item points for a 30,000 ability points ability, it would seem like a losing deal, no? Actually, that's wrong. Item points and ability points aren't on the same scale. To put on them on the same scale, one needs to weigh it by rarity. Out of the 4 types of points, the rarest one would be summoning points, because it's the hardest to obtain. Next would be ability points, with equipment points following closely behind, and then item points, the most easily obtained one. To il.u.s. trait this, he beats a bunch of monster to level up, yeah? Shanking mobs, as long as he stabs them, then they would leave bodies behind. Once one were to sell this to the system, then one could get item points. Other things that could be sold OT the system for points fall under the same context. Item points are easily obtainable. So 300,000 item points and 30,000 ability points might seem too great a difference, but that's not actually true. It depends on how Wu Yan used them, that's all. If he used the points on some useless muggle, then it's a waste. Use it on another op character and it's cha-ching, baby. Using it on Mikato would result in break even. He used ability get and clicked on Mikato's status. Ding, obtained Electromaster LV4. Bluish white lightning bounced on his skin and flowed around him, making biribiri sounds. As the electric flowed, he started feeling a bit of pain. The pain got stronger and stronger until it turned into agony, much to his shock. Beep. Because the user's level is too low and can't deal with the intensity of this ability, the ability has started to corrode the body, taking the initiative to forcibly rise the level of user. Beep. Body at a level which suits the requirement, leveling is suits fuel. Ding. Congratulations on leveling up. Current level is 50. Faced with the warm fuzzy feeling of leveling up and the ensuing strengthening feeling, he felt even more baffled. Could it be that by obtaining ability one can also level up? Chapter 49. Level 50 just like that. Looking at his hand, Wu Yan still can't handle the situation at hand. It's not first time he bought abilities. Kendo Master and Chaotic Return to Horizon Waltz are instances where he bought abilities but there's no level up before. Why, when faced with the LV4 ability there's a sudden rise in level? System, can one level up by getting abilities? Just buying abilities one can't advance in levels. Can't. Now he's even more bewildered. Why did he rise in level then? And what does the system mean by qualifying it with just? Does this implies that if it's not just buying abilities then he would rise in level? His head is hurting from the system employment of technical jargon. Tell me then, why did I rise a level when I got the LV4 Esper power? It's an exception. Exception. Some powers that are powerful has level requirements, and if the user does not fit it, then when one obtains such a power the ability will give a negative feedback until the user is forcibly leveled up to reach its standard. Understanding the gist of it, he got excited. Suppose I get a super ridiculously overpowered ability with a super high level requirement, doesn't that mean I would be able to rise quickly in level by using this route? It goes like this: ama.s.saf.u.c.k ton of ability points by a g.o.d tier ability, lol, as he approached g.o.d tier level. At this moment, he started daydreaming again. He even began to think up ways to ama.s.s at ability points, but too bad this is but mere daydream. Once his fantasy reached a point of utmost height, the system came pouring cold water on him. Reminder: if the ability is too great and the user can't handle the recoil, then one's body not being able to handle the load would disintegrate and therefore die. His grin froze and he continued laughing like what's just said doesn't matter. If the body can't handle the load then the feedback will kill, is that what you're saying? The system can't read the mood. If it did it would have noticed the black air behind him. It just did its job of telling facts straight. He snapped and stomped his feet. If that's so, why didn't you remind me just now? I could have died from the recoil just now if my body can't handle it. What if I die? Still stomping, he patted his chest from the shocking realization post-X the fact. So that's why his chest hurt just now. That must be the aforementioned feedback. If he can't deal with it then. Shivering, his furious eyes became sobbish. A system that doesn't screw people over isn't system. As expected, all system that goes down in history are all trolls. Why didn't you remind me? Now he's not just p.i.s. said at the fact that system didn't give him a note, but that the system's calm voice sound like the matter of him subjected to chance of mortality isn't a big deal. He is not amused at this moment. LV4 requires level 50, since the user was level 49 at the time and there's only so much distance between 50 and 49, the recoil isn't that bad, so going by system's judgment the body of user at that time could deal with the risk with negligible mortality rate, so it's within the margin of tolerance and thus no notice or reminder were issued. Resisting the urge to suicide along with the system, he laid back down on the bed. His background went pitch black, dark aura came out of his body and his heart had the washua washua SFX. Within tolerable margins. Recoil not that high? Take that and shove it up your sister, TL, lit your sister. That pain just now sent me to Hades and back and you say it's not that high. It's within tolerable range. Some more? Giving me the short end of the stick because the chance of my death happening is not likely. That's your real tolerable margin, isn't it? Coach, I wanna sue. TL, your guess is as good as mine, probably a meme about injustice. Forcibly increasing the level by 1 would result in this extent of agony. If the attempt didn't succeed he would be in so much pain he can't move, no. And if the forcibly raised levels were too much then wouldn't he have died for sure? Note to self, apply caveat emptor when buying abilities. Climbing up from his bed he stretched before walking out of his room. After sleeping for an entire day it's about time they left this world for Silveria. The sun just came out and Hinajiku's mother is still sleeping, so he just walked straight towards Hinajiku's room. Mikoto and Hinajiku sleeps in the same room, one could just smell the yuri scent. He didn't knock and open the door before walking in like he owns the joint. With Mikoto's ability, opening locks and whatnot are so much more easier now than before, and as such the likeliness of seeing something good increases. Maintaining his stance of opening a door, he gazed at the two girls sleeping on the bed. He pondered over the appropriateness of his action for about 0.1 sec before walking over. Of course he erased the sound of his walking over. Locking the door behind him with his back against it, he found a seat and sat down. He can't wait to set his sight upon the scene over at the bed, he nodded in satisfaction ever so often. He doesn't know the reason, but the girls that would normally sleep in pajamas are not b.u.t.t naked. Well, strictly speaking it's not b.u.t.t naked, the two wore their cute which he personally put on them before in the cave, so they are not naked in a technical sense. But they might as well be. He doesn't know what fun games they played last night judging by their appearance, but since he's presented with this kind of chance he can't let it go. He memorized the scene before him with impeccable memory. Scanning over their breast he can't help but feel intense emotions. There's not much development here. If this situation were predicted, one would have helped their growth with some extra therapeutic ma.s.sage last time. Perhaps it's because his gaze is too fearless. Mikoto woke up. As a level 69, seems far-fetched that she can't detect another person's presence, isn't it? If not because she's in a safe area and because she's too tired as well, she would have woke up ages ago. Snapping her eyes open, she looked warily in Wu Yan's direction. Noticing him, she was momentarily stunned before she began frowning. "What are you doing here? And, how rude, you didn't even try to wake us up." Seeing as she didn't even notice her exposed body and how she's talking with him like this, he flinched before realizing a short while later that he f.u.c.ked up, once again. The last time something like this happened was when he gave her a bath. As for how he got wrecked afterwards, let's just say he's still traumatized. It looks like he will die once more today. Already trembling a bit inside, he tried to salvage whatever life he might still have. He tried to coax Mikoto, at least get her not to wake Kaiko-sama. With a serious face he looked at Mikoto. "Mikoto, whatever you do, you must listen carefully to me, do not move recklessly." Yawning, she sat up and her pristine body revealed all its glory upon his unworthy countenance. He however didn't have the mood to appreciate the art that is the situation before him, for stopping all motions, Mikoto tried to comprehend the windy feeling touching her skin. Finally recalling the state she's in. Eyes popping if ever so slightly, she looked at him in a dumbfounded way. Her body grew colder and her expression finally changed. F.U.C.K. Seeing that she's getting even more panicky and her mouth started moving, he rushed towards her and closed her mouth with his hand. "Mikoto, it's my fault, it most definitely is my fault, but for the love of G.O.D. don't shout. At least don't wake Hinajiku up, otherwise everybody would find out that your body has been seen by me." Startled by his actions again, some color began to return to her beautiful face. Was it anger and embarrassment? Koi. Who knows, but sparks started dancing in a not so metaphorical way. If it were before then, against the fate of being electrocuted like a perp getting tasered, he would start praying, but right now he has the same type of ability as her LV4, notwithstanding being at 1/10 of her power. Some measly electricity can't put him down. Ignoring the lightning dancing about, the only thing he's concerned about is the scenario where her crackles stirred Hinajiku into consciousness. At that point in time he would die without doubt. Compared to Mikoto, who's stronger, for some reason he fears Kaiko-sama even more. "Please calm down." Seeing as the intensity of lightning grew on her body and that the accompanying mini thunder got louder, he started becoming even more frantic, like a dog jumping over wall in panic. He pressed Mikoto down against the bed and shook his head to gesture her into silence. Alas, it slipped his mind that the series of motion looked like some precursor to pushing down someone. Her lightning disappeared. Being pushed down on the bed with his body pressing down on her and his face mere inches away, her eyes started swirling and her mind went blank. He looked confused at her behavior, seeing as she's in a daze and unmoving he can't help but consider the alternative of fleeing. Biri. And the electrical sound came again, her head going up in smoke, her forehead crackling with electric, and her eyes as if looking at a dead man walking. In reality she wanted to kill him, no scratch that, she moved. Unleashing electricity at him, she directed all of it towards the one sticking close to her. The objective is to put this M.O.F.O down. The sudden surge took him by surprise, but he recovered in seconds. She clearly held back with this surge. It's not enough to harm normal person. He who holds the same power as her could receive her A.S. Salt with nary a scratch, not even a hair on him stood up. He, little las.s, your powers are ineffective against me, it's better if you obediently follow my demands. Thinking that she can't pose a threat to him anymore, he let the notion get to his head. She gave him a perplexed look. With her mouth gagged she can't say anything and naturally ask anything, but questions and the like can wait after dishing out heavenly punishment on this perverted leakin. Electro attacks not working means she's out of move. Neen, her time at his side has taught her well. Clenching her fist she sent him flying with one punch while blushing. Covering her body with a blanket she covered herself, even going as far as burying her head. When the H.E.L.L. Did this Oni-sama always had such great strength? 'Twas his musing laying upon the floor. She had this much strength, then why did she get molested by Shiroi Kuriko the Yuri girl after she overused her powers? This is unscientific. TL, regarding the... While some might disagree, I think they add a bit of schadenfreude to the anime. Why? I know she's serious even though it's made out to be comedic, and we know it's not gonna happen no matter how hard she tries. Anyway, here's her in action. Chapter 50. Giant Beast Forest. The side he entered transcript world from still had the bonfire, and it was still glowing red. Most likely it hasn't even become extinguished yet, and no demonic beast came here, so the place looked just as it did before he went into the transcript world. He stayed in that world for about 1 month, so under the time ratio of 100:1 that world to this one, here in Silveria not even a day has passed. And since he chose to return, this is the place of his arrival. Two figure appeared out of nowhere near the bonfire. Dusting his shirt he put out the kindle with his leg as if he was here the whole time without ever leaving once. Mikoto on the other hand just looked around full of curiosity. Glancing left and right she tried to compare the differences between this world and worlds known to her. Apparently she's disappointed. Giant Beast Forest, it's just an oversized forest, not much different from a normal one. Bored with her discovery she let out a disappointed tone. What is this? It's just a normal forest, isn't it? I thought it would be different. Amused by her reaction he chuckled at her. I see, this is how you feel. Well, there's a great surprise waiting for you later on. Oh. She just gave him a doubtful look and sparks crackling about her forehead before replying with a humph. I am looking forward to that. Shrugging she overlooked her. This girl, she's still holding her grudge from this morning despite already giving him a H.E.L.L. of a punch. Seriously. What are you doing? S.P.A. Sing out here, hurry up and summon Hinajiku. Looking at the guy trying to act all deep she can't help giving a big fat slap right on the back. This little las.s, she's doing this on purpose. Almost kissing the ground due to the slap he soothed his injured back before rolling his eyes at her. She could care less about this though. Opening the menu list and clicking on summon he pulled around and quickly found Hinajiku on it. Hinajiku, a character of Hayate the Combat Butler, the student council president of Heikuo Academy, summoning points 5000. That's right, 5000 points. That's how cheap Kaiko-sama is. Even if she's so lovable, in the end she's only level 18 and thus could not garner a value higher than this. It's pretty easy to summon her, even after summoning Mikoto what with his 11,000 summoning points reserve. He clicked summon and very soon the scene that appeared before when he summoned Mikoto repollied in front of him. A light so bright the two can't help but block against it with their hands. Hinagiku was slowly drawn out. Like a perfectly blank paper with an invisible hand drawing on it, Hinagiku is slowly being drawn out. The light disappeared when she appeared completely. A very thin radiant light shot out from her body and connected with him. Experiencing this once before, he's not afraid of this phenomena like before. Standing there he observed Hinagiku. Mikoto however gazed at the scene with wonder in her eyes. This was how she was summoned. At the time she's aware of it just like how Hinagiku is not aware of it now. His heart synced with Hinagiku's in a hasty fashion and soon the bond of light severed and coalesced into a light ball and merged into his body. Reflexively examining his body all over he felt very weird out at this. It's a merging of life force and he certainly could feel the two sharing the same life. It's a kind of Genesis-qua kind of feeling. Hinagiku. Mikoto's voice made him return from self-introspection. After the completion of life force merging she's together with Mikoto exploring their surrounding with inquisitiveness. From her point of observation, Wu Yan and Mikoto just said goodbye to her and disappeared into thin air. The next thing she knew she felt dizzy and stuff about system, summon and basic information about Wu Yan appeared in her mind. After she's done with the imprinting memories her eyes opened and she appeared in this forest. From what Mikoto tells her, this is another world. She flinched at this sudden turn of events, making her marvel at the fantastic abilities of system. Is the summoning over? Where's the life force merging? Why do I feel like nothing has changed at all? She checked out her body and found nothing amiss before she turned to Mikoto. I don't know as well. Touching her chin with her fingers she pondered while blinking. The time I was summoned, I didn't feel anything out of the ordinary except a familiar sense coming off from Wu Yan. Arriving at the later part of speech she started becoming bashful and her tone was meek, so meek in fact only Hinagiku could hear them. I suppose. Sneaking a peek at Wu Yan who has question mark all around him, she could certainly feel that kinship. She blushed as well before putting her hands together in front of her chest and chuckling. Merging of life force, is it? Seeing as the two girls are whispering in front of him he's bored rather than feeling idling. A winner in life would be ostracized. He feels like this saying has some credibility. As long as he doesn't get burned all is good. Clapping his hands, he attracted their attention before continuing. All right, let's leave the idle talks for later. Let's discuss what we should do after this, shall we? Next moves. A bit puzzled the two turned to him. He found a seat and sat down before continuing. Should we stay? Or should we go out of here? If we stay here what should we do, and if we go out where should we go? Don't you girls feel like this warrant a proper discussion? Even if you put it that way. The two exchanged gazes before sitting down in front of him. We wouldn't know what to do. And that's why we need to discuss this matter. Feeling a bit powerless at the reaction of the two girls, aren't they supposed to be quite intelligent fellows? One's a Heikuo Academy student and another's Tokiwada Middle School. These are all Ivy Leagues. He was counting on them to have some sort of idea on what to do after this. The thing is, we aren't familiar with this world as you are. Mikoto twirled her tea-colored bangs and her nose crinkled. Maybe if there's a map or something we could study it, but at this point with nothing to work on how should we even go about planning? Didn't you say it yourself? You were here for 3 months, then you should be more acquainted with this world than us, isn't it? Don't tell me you have never gone any sort of planning before this. She's a bit averse to sitting on the bare ground, she twisted about in an agitated way. But I also didn't go to a lot of places as well, you see. He beamed at the two. Sure, he's here for 3 months, but excluding Giant Beast Forest and the supply town he really hasn't been to any place. As for the map, then fine, it should be somewhere in the system. He still recall with perfect clarity how the system asked him before whether or not he wants to buy a map of the giant forest. It was when he had just arrived at this world. The price was 3000 item points. The system approached him like a salesman, totally unprincipled. Here for 3 months and you never gone out far from this forest. Throwing him a mystified look, Mikoto looked at him as if she's staring at ah.o.m.o. erectus. TL, thank you Family Guy, it's fair to say that he's very upset at her reaction. I'm sorry for being so unworldly. He decided to ignore her condescending gaze and turned to Hinajiku. Hinajiku, what do you think? The two turned to her while she mused for a bit. Yan, you said that as your summon, I can power up through killing monster in a similar fashion as in those games, yeah? Confronted with such a question he flinched before nodding. Yep, and it would be more apt to say that this act increases one's level, but yet if you don't stop grinding and keep defeating the foe which holds animosity against, then one could obtain experience and by accu. Of it levels. After listening to his explanation she beamed before giving the two of them a serious look. Well then, Yan, Mikoto, I want to level up. Level up. The two were bewildered by her. Mikoto is the first on to realize her intentions. It's him who can't quite comprehend her intentions. In his mind Kaiko-sama is not someone who pursues power. She's a bit competent but that's about it. She has an indifferent attitude to strength. In her usual sport matches her performance on field is but mere fondness of sports. In the original work, after meeting the MC she at one point hated her stronger self, believing it to not fit her image as a girl. It seems odd that Kaiko-sama would say something like level up. He's a bit against it, to be honest. Why the sudden interest? He has a puzzled face as he asked this. Her eyes started drifting, murmuring something. She finally turned her head away with an upset tone. Just take it as me having too strong a pride. For some reason he could feel from her tone that there was a layer of reproach in it. With a fury laugh he gestured to the two girls. If it's like that, then let's level her up. This aligned with his intention. Kaiko-sama is low in her level and that's a fact. It would be best to increase it some more. Power leveling. Fine with me. Standing up she cracked her hand as she grinned. Let me see just how tough and ugly these demonic beasts are. Hey, you're a girl, don't do something like cracking fingers, it could scare the little ones. Are you some kind of delinquent or something? Must you get so excited? Feeling weak with her he tried calming the girl down. Isn't Railgun supposed to display her meek and thunderous side? Why did she turn into an Amazoness when it's me? Beidou, TL, you little s.h.i.t. That's but of course. She didn't even turn her head back as she said so. Demonic beast and the likes I have never seen before. Fighting against demonic beast is also the first time for me. He didn't even feel like responding anymore as he stood up. Now that it's decided, I recall that in this vicinity there should be a level 20-ish small bear around here. Why don't you pop your cherry over them? What do you mean by that? Her smiling face gone, she looked at him with an evil leer as lightning danced upon her forehead. It seems like if he repeated that the lightning would be dancing off his body the next instant. Mama. With the same power as her, he's no longer at the mercy of her electrical attacks. Therefore, should he worry about self-preservation when mocking her? Biri. You. Biting down on her teeth so hard it looks like she's trying her utmost to resist chomping down on him. Recalling the event from this morning added tinge of rossiness to her cheeks. Observing the two as they did their Mexican standoff, Hinajiku could only sigh and do no more. Are we still going or what? Chapter 51. Chapter 51, it appears that some people walk their dogs in giant beast forest. So this is the little bear you're talking about. Mikoto let the little bear in front of her display its claws and fangs to its satisfaction. She clenched her fist as she set her tea-colored eyes on Wu Yan with electricity dancing ominously on her forehead. Hinajiku also grasped her Shiro Sakura on the side with a stupefied expression on her face. It really is a little bear. He grumbled like this is but common sense. Compared to the other beast in the forest, this 3-meter stature can only be referred to as small. When he first arrived at Silveria, he met a wind snake who at level 10 has a length of nearly 4 meters. There are other tier 1 monsters who were also this size. This level 20 grizzly bear is not that big a foe. Who? Swallowing the wrath that is her disappointment at this monster, she pointed her hand crackling with lightning and shot it with a lightning bolt. Unleashing her anger upon the poor bear, Mikoto was like a demon had possessed her or something. The enemy is only a mere level 20 and she went all out on this monster. It's safe to say the bear got wrecked. Listening to the groans, which leans more towards anguished howls than angry ones, he can't help having a tingle up his spine. It's as though he's about to walk into the gates of hell. Hinagiku also backpedaled 2 steps back while dryly laughing. Roasted, quite literally, the bear fell onto the ground, sending dust up. Hinagiku felt a light sensation in her body and a soothing feel out of nowhere. She joyously grasped her palm to feel her strength, which grew somewhat stronger as she nodded in satisfaction. He nodded as well before pulling open the status list. Hinagiku's status is located below Mikoto's and hers under his. Unit, Katsura Hinagiku abilities, None Power, D Endurance, D Agility, D Psychological, C Equipments, Shiro Sakura level, 19. He has inquired the system about the minor differences between summon status, but it's basically an issue of attribute. Specifically, it follows the same classification of equipments. The D grade is the lowest and S grade is the highest. Anything lower than D grade would have a none. Going by the system's definition, if the display shows none, then does the person really have none of that attribute? If one's power shows a none, then wouldn't that person have no energy TOEIC? This is not the first time he retorted inside. The system's status screen is a mess. Thinking back to his first status screen inside the space of unit, it only has human, this kind of great title inside it. So this is level up? I do feel that I have become stronger somehow. She's smiling after trying out her newfound strength with her arms. Level up? That bear just now is a level 20, isn't it? I can't believe you leveled up. She expressed her disbelief while lightly kicking the bear under her feet. He shrugged at her. It's easy early game, much like an RPG. Wait till later part of the game, then it starts to get harder. Don't you recall killing them in the ceiling barrier by the hundreds only to level up only once? It's not limited to her. He feels as though it has been getting harder and harder to level up. The level 60 Great Snake monster from before, which outleveled him by 15, only gave him 4 levels upon defeat. There's also a factor he didn't include, its levels before tier shift, so it was easier. Had it not been because of ability get he used to obtain LV4 Electro Master that forcibly raised him to level 50, this one level from 49 to 50 would really have been a bitch to grind. That's right, I don't know when I might be able to reach level 70. She lowered her head while muttering so. What she needs right now is power. Once she has the sufficient amount, only then can she defeat Accelerator and save the sisters. He said so already. If she went up against Accelerator with her pre-summoned self, her chances are close to none. The her who was just summoned is at level 68, but each level is an improvement in her chance of victory. Accelerator's power, TL, is over 8000. Level 70. Absolutely so, at least level 70, tier 8. This tier difference is very hard to bridge. Early game already show signs of this, what's to say of late game like Mikoto's? This one level is not enough. Only when she reaches level 70 does she stand a chance. Not only that, to definitively save the sisters would require one to face Alistair, the board chairman of Academy City. He should be stronger than Accelerator at tier 8 himself, and there's the enigmatic angel Iwas. These two must be confronted in order to systematically save the sisters. Hence the present plan, getting stronger. TL, rising up back on the street. Her expression didn't escape his eyes. He sighed before comforting her with a pat on the shoulder. As long as we don't enter your world would be in a frozen state. We have all the time in the world, so don't panic. Take it slow and steady. Yan. With doubts in her eyes she continued. Can I really save the sisters? It's not I, it's we. He corrected her. Our life are one and we are meant to be together forever, your affairs are my affairs, don't forget about me. Who wants to be with you forever? Triggered by his words her low tone heightened into a frantic one, no matter how one looks at it, it's damn cute. Finally her tsundere sighed. Grinning at the sight of her, he understands that a tsundere Mikoto is a normal Mikoto. Don't worry, even if they're boss, we are the main characters, their existence is destined to get their buttocks handed to them by us. Listening to his confident speech, she nodded heavily and assured as well. No matter what happens, the sisters must be rescued. From the point that Wu Yan and Mikoto started talking, Hinagiku slipped into silence as she observed their interactions. She somewhat understand the circumstances Mikoto's pondering inside her heart, that's why she didn't butt in. But her eyes, they were filled with a mysterious malice in them when she looked at him, this made him utter a few awry laughter. Giving him some more leer she silently threatened him before pulling Mikoto by the hand. All right, let's continue the leveling trip, I still want to become stronger. Not giving her the chance to say anything and surely no chance for him as well, the duo went into a bush making him stiff in various ways. Crystal Palace, so hard to build. Where are we going, Hinagiku? She slanted her head in Hinagiku's direction, without Wu Yan to guide them and no map to tell the direction, the chance of getting lost is 99/100. Strolling around to find demonic beast. Can we really find a demonic beast by walking around like this? Dejaobu, Yan said it, there's nothing much here but tons of demonic beast, I think we should find some if we look around. Like hell I did, I never said that, one does not simply find demonic beasts in bushes, you think they're insects or something. Ah, it's a demonic beast. Hee, I told you so, look, just by walking around we actually found some, isn't it? Yeah, but the demonic beast looks like. Receiving the oral stimulation coming from the bush he turned fine, there are demonic beasts who likes bushes. He's not that worried about the two getting in danger or anything, not with Mikoto around, since this palsy is the outskirts of demonic beast forest, the strongest he has seen around this part are level 30s. Beep. Detected special event, issuing urgent mission. Urgent mission, rescue operation. Mission 1, kill all the sharp fang hounds, current progress 0/20. Rewards, equipment points, item points, ability points, summoning points 3000. Mission 2, kill all the Iron Hound mercenary in the vicinity, current progress 0/20. Rewards, equipment points, item points, ability points, summoning points 7000. Mission 3, rescue Lyran, kill Iron Hound mercenary vice captain. Rewards, equipment points, item points, ability points, summoning points 10,000. He's startled by the system. Sudden mission? Rescue op? The three missions seemed more focused on killing than rescuing though. Detect special events? Is it referring to the kidnapping? System, when did you start wearing green hat and turned into an envoy of peace? WA. Disgusting. Don't come over here. Mikoto and Hinagiku. Putting strength into his steps, he shot out like an arrow, making his way to the two ladies. Is something wrong? Seeing that they're alarmed but fine, he fewed. Disgusting hounds, are they keeping dogs in forests as well? Hinagiku pointed at a figure some distance away with a repulsed look. Dog. He turned to look when she said that, what he saw was a dog with long and overbiting teeth snarling at them. The dog is completely bald and at a size just a bit shorter than the two girls. The most distinguishing feature is that saliva's going drip drop from their mouth, it's appalling to say the least. Sharp Fang Hound, level 20. Rather than calling them Sharp Fang Hound, why not call them bald dogs, that's more apt but still doesn't change the fact that they're fugly. Looking at the vulgar appearance and the excessively drooling sharp fang hound, he outstretched his hand and Nitano no Shana appeared within his palm. He didn't even draw the blade and just appeared in front of the hound in a flash and swung his blade upwards, smashing against the dog's face. Whimper. The dog flew high into the sky before crashing down on the ground, and with a demolished face it thrashed about. Sickened by its appearance, he rubbed the scabbard against the ground. Lucky the dog didn't get any saliva on it, otherwise he might consider getting another sword. The two girls were a bit astonished at what happened. They didn't understand why he sent the dog flying without saying anything. When they recovered their senses, he had already ended the hound by stomping it. He walked to them before frowning as he continued. "There's a sudden mission issued just now." "The system did." Hinagiku and Mikoto looked at each other before continuing. "What mission? Why don't you girls check it out yourselves?" He sent the information over to the girls. "This function is only applicable to summons." "Oh, so that's the hound you killed just now? To think there's 19 more. Where this came from." She twisted her neck at the thought of dealing with more of that thing. "Sharp Fang Hound, Iron Hound Mercenary Group." Mikoto muttered under her breath. "It looks like the mercenary group is the one who reared these foul creatures." "NN, should be." He nodded in agreement. "And, they seem to have captured a person called Lyran. Kidnapping, is it? So low." She's upset as she said this, living in the brighter side of the academy city and having a female underclassman working as part of the disciplinary committee. This kind of assholes she has seen many times before, and her hate for them has not lessened, a case of the proverbial making mischief due to sense of justice. TL, open for possible translation alternatives. I wanted to put vigilante justice, but that's not quite it. It means something along the line of beating / harming / scolding / teasing someone out of sense of justice regardless of prevalent law or the non-existence thereof. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 52. So our mission is to kill all the hounds and mercenary and then saving this person called Lyran. Hinagiku confirmed the content once more with Wu Yan. "Yeah, the mission said they're nearby, so that makes the job all the more expedient." He looked at the surroundings while grinning and fiddling with Nitano no Shana. "Kill all the people?" Mikoto frowned, turning her pretty little face into those wrinkles found on guava. It appears she's conflicted on something. "Killing people, wouldn't that be a bit too?" Hinagiku is also feeling a bit uncomfortable. The two is still very reluctant to kill anyone. He knows as well that asking them to kill people might be asking too much. If they could do it without any qualms, they wouldn't be the Hinagiku and Mikoto he knows. He tapped the two's head with his sword hilt. "I am not telling you girls to kill, I will worry about that part." He stretched out his hand to stroke their forehead. The two glared at him before nodding, albeit they are still a bitter. He sighed at their response. "I say, you wouldn't perhaps have any sympathy on these douchebag mercenaries who kidnaps people, right?" Not giving them the chance to respond, he continued. "This world is not as beautiful as you imagined. In a world of might makes right, there are bound to be a.s.shoals who use their relatively stronger power to oppress others. This kind of people do not serve sympathy." Hinagiku and Mikoto slightly flinched before dimming down. The too bright girl could understand the phenomena he said should exist on this world. Cracking his neck, he lifted his sword. "I'm not asking you to do the stuff you don't like. If it came to that, then you're not being you, but I will say this, redundant mercy should not be brought into this world. It's not realistic to do so. Not only is it unrealistic, a slight misstep and it could harm others and oneself." He didn't reveal the more sinister latter part, not in front of the two girls of course. "Geez, I understand." She gave him a cold humph out of being a little upset before muttering. "At most, I would close my eyes to the thing that's about to happen later." Mikoto pulled herself together and hoisted her face. She's a reasonable person, After hearing about the circuit-mistances surrounding the sisters, she accept that there's a darker side to the world. Accept doesn't mean she's okay with it, it's only the extent of acknowledging the reality, if it's the darker side. Looking at Wu Yan's back, she murmured. Is he handling it for my sake? It's Hinajiku who managed to look at the broader aspect of the matter. Since they did wrong, it's collective accountability. This is what the upright Kaiko-sama thought. Though the punishment is very heavy for sure. He's standing there waiting for the two to be done with their mental preparations. He hasn't killed any person before as well, but deep inside he won't have much remorse. He's not as soft and naive as before, otherwise Slime wouldn't have got his hand chopped off. If it's like that, Yan, you take the mercenaries, while the hounds. Straightening the sword in front of her, she slid her finger across it while grinning. Leave them to us. Leave the hounds to you girls. He looked at her, not sure what to say to her. Those hounds are level 20, wouldn't it be a tad bit inappropriate to leave them to the level 19 her? Don't underestimate me. His eyes told her all she needed to hear, using a bit of a forceful tone. Even if they're higher level than me, I still won't lose. Yet he hesitated. I know levels don't say everything about abilities, but your opponents is not just one but a whole pack of them. Hey, don't you go forgetting about me. Mikoto stood on her toes while looking like she's rearing to go. The dogs are low in level and as disgusting as they come, but Misaka Mikoto has no plans to let them go unharmed. Very well. It seems they would not be satisfied without letting them help out. He could only nod his head to their request. Leave the mercenaries to me and the hounds to you girls. After that's settled, it's rescuing the target person, Lyran. Let's find out the location of the enemy beforehand. She lifted her hand. The mission did say they are in the vicinity. She looked around, but all she could see were bushes after bushes. Their numbers plus the vice captain should total up to 21, and with 19 additional hounds, plus a guy to look after them, this kind of scale would definitely leave a trace trail. It's up to us to find it. With Mikoto and my ability of detecting electromagnetism, if the area isn't too big, it ought be possible to find said trace. He closed his eye and a static flowed between his hair. Mikoto did the same and blue-white light flashed across her forehead. Hinajiku already heard about his ability that is obtained from Mikoto, so she's not that astonished by it. Only that, right now there's not much she could contribute, so she stood there on the side with a helpless look in an attempt to stop any ambush. Found it? Mikoto opened her eyes. Wu Yan and Hinajiku turned to her. Pointing at one direction, she directed them. This direction. I can feel reactions coming from here. It seems to be of the static kind, and the number is numerous. It should be this direction. You can detect even static electricity. She's a bit surprised. Static electricity is electricity, but is that even something a human could detect? Due to the distance not being too far, no electric stations nearby, no electrical devices, wires, and the like that conducts electricity to disrupt, I could more or less sense them. She did a chin rub while smiling at her. This direction, is it? Looking into the distance, he turned back to the girls. Then we best hurry. We don't know if they will do something harmful to Lyran, so it's in our best interest to make haste. The two girls nodded and dashed into the forest in formation, making their way towards the mission targets. In just a bit, minor movements transmitted into their ears. He knows this is conclusive proof of their presence. He slowed down and gestured to Hinajiku and Mikoto as the trio killed their footstep sounds while approaching. A bunch of armor-wearing mercenaries were either standing, or sitting near the bonfire. They held weapons and were keeping vigilance on sight. Some is patrolling the area while there's a bunch of sharp fang hounds strolling nearby. Each hound had malevolent faces, that coupled with their annoying drooling made them look very revolting. The dogs are level 20s while the mercenaries are spread in the range of level 20 to level 30, basically tier 3 warriors. Tier 3 look trashy, but they aren't cabbages waiting to be farmed. Recall that back when Lulu came to do some training, by her side was 30 tier 3 warriors, even if Fei Fei's there, so they were kinda redundant, but not everyone can have this kind of escort. And now, inside a mercenary band there's 20 tier 3 warriors and 20 of those tamed demonic beast. This mercenary means business. His attention is mainly focused on the middle-aged dude guzzling booze near the bonfire. Tylee, level 40. That's right, this dude called Tylee has tier 5 strength and a position of vice captain, so to say there's a captain that's stronger than him. A vice captain, a bunch of people to assist in the kidnapping of one people. That and the fact that the system said there's some special event, it feels like he's getting roiled into a hidden conflict of some sorts. An elbow tapped him at the side of his waist. It's Hinajiku's. She's trying to get him to look in the direction and she's pointing, and so he did before he blanched at the sight. In front of a tree, a 10-year-oldish little blonde girl is tied by ropes and laid upon the ground. Her delicate countenance, even if compared to, wouldn't lose by much. There's tears in the corner of her eyes as she looked utterly terrified by the mercenary around her. If after observing all this Wu Yan still could not figure out that the rescue ops target is this girl before him, then he might as well sign himself into a senile home. He didn't expect the kidnapped person to be a loli, and a super cute one at that. As a veteran Lilicon, Wu Yan, no, I'm not a Lilicon. Starting to go out of frequency again, he retorted at himself to deny being a Lilicon. He's completely unaware that by his side is two that just passed their expiry dates and qualifies as half loli. TL, Konosuba reference. Vice Captain, when will we be able to exit the giant beast forest? A senior-looking mercenary came to Tylee's side while whispering to him. He chugged a big gulp before exhaling his satisfaction. He then turned to look at the mercenary and nonchalantly blew him off. Ah, soon. Maybe a little bit more time, wait until news come from Big Bro, then we can go out of here. That would be so nice, staying here for so long it feels like my hair is overgrowing. Tylee turned his face to the other side before continuing while drinking booze. You're just missing a woman's touch, you can't hide that intention of yours from me. Seen through by him, the subordinate is not ashamed at all, he only smirked. But of course, how can my thoughts escape the vice captain? I can't help it, not in this forest without any woman. By your abilities. Throwing the empty bottle, he picked up another one and sent the cork flying with a light twist. He guzzled once more before laughing out loud at the mercenary. Even if you did go out, you can't find any good stuff. You would even stoop so low as to waste your energy on those kind of stuff. Pathetic. Vice Captain, my standards cannot be compared to yours. What's more, if I can get laid it's pretty good already. What if I can't? Sir B.U.T. Kiss looked like a dog's leg with his serval atti. If it's a woman you want, then it's easy. Tylee looked at Lyran the lowly with a crooked smile and lewd face. Once Big Bro is done with this midget, I will play with her FOT a bit, and when I'm done with her she's all yours. Elated at this, the mercenary gave him a look. Thanks a bunch, Vice Captain. Then the two guffawed. The two lowlives. The three heard everything. Mikoto grudgingly uttered at the two SCU.M who would lay their hands upon a little girl. She's definitely P.I.S. said now. Let's stir fry those mother F.U.C.Kers later. Wu Yan snapped as well. A loli is meant to be loved, and Tay SCU.M would eat her up. And to such a small loli, for the sake of all Lilicons he must castrate them. Mikoto and Hinajiku nodded. The conversation between the Mook and Tylee, they are infuriated quite simply. They were a bit hesitant to kill for a mission, but now those feelings all went down the gutters. It's as he said, on this world, there's a group of people who must die. Mercy and Sympathy BDAM.net. Chapter 53. Mikoto, Hinajiku, your objective is to kill the hounds. I will cook me up some small fries, then we go deal with the SCU.Bag Majora. Wu Yan went over the details of their plan before slowly drawing out Nitano no Shana. Don't worry, I will look after Hinajiku. Quickly picking up the meaning behind his gaze, Mikoto tried to assure the guy with a nod. Hey. Listening to Mikoto, Hinajiku stood akimbo, a bit upset at their treatment of her. I'm not a kid, Do I need to be taken care of? A bit powerless at her display, he responded. I say, Kaiko-sama, this is all for your own good. With your low level right now, it would have to wait until you're a bit higher, then you can do whatever you want, but right now please be obedient and cooperate with Mikoto. I know, it's not like I don't understand. Still a bit bitter, she took light steps to Mikoto's side. At least leave one for me to deal with, I also want to help out. Wu Yan and Mikoto exchanged look before nodding. Okay, Hinagiku can have one, take it as a chance to improve your real battle experience. If it's against only one, Hinagiku should be able to do it. It is a battle between tiers, but tier 2 and tier 3 is not that from each other yet, and the hound wouldn't be able to rival humans in terms of cunning and wits, thus the battle should be easier on her. Spending 100,000 item points to buy a resplendent breath, he said it over to her while reminding her sternly. If you're ever in danger, drink it straight away, don't risk it. No need, Listen. Shoving the potion into her hands, he stared directly into her yellowish-green pupils. To me, you're more important than that lousy bottle of potion. Screw 100,000 item points, even if it were to be multiplied by 100 or 1000 times, it's still worth less than a drop of your blood. Amazed by his seriousness, she blushed and received the potion and then grasping it tightly in her palm. Mikoto, who stood on the side, was also surprised by the Cyanate statement. She's only 14 years old, never has she heard a line so cheesy and cringe-worthy. She feels embarrassed, said, and at the same time a bit of admiration for the guy. In her eyes, there were some warmness and displeasure mixed together. Woof woof. Suddenly a hound is barking at their direction, giving the trio still hiding in the dark a jump. Along with the bark, more barking sounds came. Right now a pack of hounds are heading their direction while barking and leaving a trail of drool along the way. It's sloppy to say the least. Who's there? Seeing that their hounds sudden acted up, the mercenaries took up arms. Ty Lee also flinched at this. Regaining his senses, he smashed the bottle in his hand on the ground and ran to Lyran's side, picking her up under his arms as he warily looked at the trees where the trio is hiding. Confronted with the approaching abominations, he almost cussed. Without waiting for him to make a move, Mikoto made an electric net and dragged the hounds to the side. Can she not be happy at this turn of events? The trio already distributed their job. Wu Yan shanks the fools, she and Hinagiku deals with the dogs. But the problem was that the dogs were mixed in with the mercenaries, and this change happened just as she was having a minor headache over how to filter out the dogs from the people. Luckily she doesn't need to take any further actions as the dogs moved on their own towards them. She only needs to capture all of them with an electric net and slaughter them at the side. Hinagiku swung her hand to the side to materialize a crystal longsword before dashing off to the side. She picked a random dog and started a battle with it. Who are you people? Still shouting, the mercenaries made their way towards Mikoto and Hinagiku. From the looks of it, they don't have any intention of finding out. It's kill on sight. Once Ty Lee saw Hinagiku and Mikoto, who are fighting with the dogs, his eyes shone before turning vulgar. His eyes wandered about like he's contemplating how to capture them alive. Seeing that his eyes is moving about on their bodies, Wu Yan, who is well versed in cliché tropes, knew what the P.R.I.C.K is thinking about. He smirked before shooting out from behind a tree at the mercenaries who are approaching Mikoto and Hinagiku. In his mind, this group of people is already dead. The jolly running mercenaries didn't get a chance to get near the two girls before a silver flash appeared in the center of their formation. Like a dancing firefly, the flash appeared and disappeared. The dance, however, is not as harmless as a firefly's. Those flashes is the cold glimmer of silver blade. Ugh. A mercenary stopped his advance, drawing the puzzled gazes of his colleagues. Before they could ask him what's wrong, the mercenary grumbled and his weapon fell with a ting-tang on the floor. Clutching his neck, he widened his eyes with terror as blood slowly flowed down his neck, dyeing his hand red. He looked at his colleagues with gasping mouth like he's trying to say something, but his attempts failed and slowly he fell down on the floor with no more life in him. This dude is the nameless mook talking with Tylee before. TL Sir B.U.T.T kiss. Ah. Before the mercenaries could scream, a shriek preceded them. A mercenary looked on in disbelief at the pristine blade without a blood coming out of his chest, and then he permanently shut his eyes. Pulling out Nitano no Shana, he dodged the spray of blood coming out and dashed to another mercenary and slashed the despairing guy. The waltz of death started. In mere moments 3 tier 3 mercenaries has fallen and they didn't even get a good look at the culprit of their death. The only thing they were cognizant of were the silvery flash before blacking out and reporting themselves to the scythe-swinging girl of Sansa River. TL, probably a reference to. After the death of 3 comrades who fought by their side before Wu Yan appeared in front of them, only now did the mercenaries piece together what happened. He nonchalantly took a step forward and the mooks stepped a few steps back as they raised their weapon at him, but none dared to come at him. Tylee moved his gaze over from the 2 girls onto him and saw the terrified mercenaries confronting Wu Yan as well as the 3 bodies on the ground. He's not even sad or mad or anything, he only shouted at his subordinates. What the H.E.L.L are you guys doing? Charge. Kill the guy. The mercenaries exchanged glance and gulped. Under the vice-captain's coercive eyes they charged at him while yelling and attacking him. Seeing as Tylee didn't use Lyran as a hostage, he feared, if he threatened him with Lyran then he would be put in a difficult spot, unless he uses Mikoto's overwhelming strength to S.N.A.T.C.H Lyran back. But doing that has its risk as well. If he can avoid this recourse then all the more better. The mercenaries' attacks are at hand and he grinned before swinging Nitano no Shana. Crisp sound rang out and the weapons in their hands turned into 2 parts as it fell into useless pieces of metal. Mainstream armament. Tylee shouted out and then stared greedily at the blade in his hand. A weapon that can so easily slash apart the weapons in their hands, which are mostly barely excellent quality goods. Only the storied mainstream armament could do something of this standard. Tylee's a tier 5 now and even now he still hasn't had the chance to equip one. His weapon right now is the same giant sword he swung around. He started to save up for an upgrade, but it looks like the HA.S.SLE is unneeded since there's someone who would soon give him the weapon he always wanted. In his eyes, this weapon is already branded with his name and soon this blade would be his. You lot, hurry up and rush the foe. He commanded the mercenaries surrounding Wu Yan before continuing training his rapacious eyes on Nitano no Shana. Beautiful woman and the likes, he could obtain those whenever he pleases. As long as he has the power, there's no need to worry about hot chicks. Weapons are one way to augment one's power. Furthermore, now that the weapon and woman he dreamed of is in front of him, he feels like it's his lucky day. Once he get rid of that male then everything would be his. With his tier 5 strength, this young fellow who looks like he hasn't matured yet could never be able to best him. With this kind of logic his confidence shot through the roof. The only thing missing now would be "I want it" written on his face. Blinded by his avarice, never would he have conceived that the one standing before him is no ordinary human. Indeed the trio looked really young. Wu Yan, who's 20, would be easily mistaken as a brat because of his goofy face and grin. Also in his perception 20-year-old is still an age where one's wet behind the ears. At that age, barring the exception of one being a genius of some big family, how could they compete with him? The situation applies even more to the 2 girls. They are even immature and they don't look the part in the slightest with their tiny body and cool elegant air. It's too bad he miscalculated. Age and height is irrelevant in this discussion because the male and female moving about before him, except for Hinajiku, is completely and utterly insurmountable by him. If Hinajiku drank the resplendent breath she holds, then even if he fought with her he would still die from debilitation. Hearing him shouting out mainstream armament, he can't help giggling at the poor fuck. Mainstream armament? That kind of equipment is obsolete to moi. Nitano no Shana is a rare armament. I still have mainstream armament, but it is currently sitting in my S.P.A.ce ring because N.O.body wants to use it. He didn't bother trying to communicate, moving his body the blade world, tracing beautiful angles. Every time it moved a splatter of blood follows, and soon so too will a mercenary as well. He zipped around the center of the encirclement with eminent speed, so fast the mercenaries felt dizzy just looking at him. Soon blood spurted out of their body before they regretfully dropped down on the ground. The sound of body tumbling down as well as the sound of blade meeting human flesh turned into a rhythm. It's like it's made of heavy tone and light tone. Once a light tone rang, it would be followed soon by a heavy tone. About 30 seconds has passed said, and within this time frame all the mercenaries collapsed and could stand no more. Ding. M2 completed. Obtained EP, IP, AP, SP7000. 20 Tier 3 mercenaries, with the sound of Mission 2 completed, their death is confirmed. It is ironic how the SCU. Bags managed to be of some use at the point of their death, as income for Wu Yan. Throwing a glance at the mercenary on the ground, he then looked disdainfully at Tai Li, who's frozen in place. He swung Nitano no Shana to the side to get rid of the blood stain and returned the blade to its bright gleam. Lifting the blade, he walked in front of Tai Li and took a look at the grim Tai Li and Lyran who's struggling in his arm. He then pointed the blade at him before yelling at the guy. Tai! Put down that loli in your hand. TL, the counter used to refer to loli here is one used for non-human creatures, basically referring to the girl as an animal or creature. Chapter 54. Tai! Put down that loli in your hand. The yell left an echo resounding the area. It stupefied those that were smacking the S.H.I.T out of hounds, it dumbfounded the one confronting him, it confounded the one being held hostage. What's missing now is a bunch of crows flying PAS.S while cawing baka. Even with his super thick face, he's felt a bit awkward. The result of F.U.C. King around earned him two judging glare from two girls and disbelieving gaze from the little loli in question. Maybe the little one thought that she's about to escape the tiger's cave only to find herself in a wolf's lair. It might also be the case that because what he said is so freaking unbearable that Hinajiku and Mikoto got a huge boost in abilities and Ma.S. Sacred the hounds. Ding. M1 completed. Obtained EP, IP, AP, SP3000. At the same time as the notification, two figures brown and pink dashed to his side and slammed their knuckles down on his head in sync, rendering him squatting on the floor. Hinajiku put down her fist and breathed in before looking in the direction of the stunned Tai Li and Lyran. That was inappropriate just now, please overlook that. Back to the topic, put down that. TL, again counter for non-human, that little girl. Lyran returned to her senses and started struggling again while Tai Li looks rustled. He feels like he just got played. He humped before reinforcing the hold on Lyran. His mouse-like eyes started darting between Mikoto and Hinajiku before smirking like a sleazy bastard. Sure can, as long as you do what I say, I will let her go. His ken made the two who's vying for time while secretly preparing their strength flinch, but his dirty tone infuriated the two. Their eyes were filled with killing intention as they wrathfully looked at Tai Li. Biri. Mikoto released her abilities, her eyes squinting to a sinister degree. This is the that she's preparing to respond with lethal force. She's calculating how much volt to put this mother F.U.C. Ker down on the ground like an electrocuted frog. Lightning magician. Astonished by her appearance, he excitedly licked his lips. Magicians are very rare, and to think this girl before him is a magician, this made the slime ball, who had tasted many women before, very thrilled. The women he had laid his hands upon didn't include magicians, not even a handful of warriors to speak of as well. To be able to taste the tender taste of a magician, his heart started stirring. After he's done, he can raise her as his right hand A.S. assistant. Walking around with a beautiful magician girl, how glorifying would this be for his image? And holding thoughts like that, he covered the girls before him even more. His fervor already floated up to his face. Of course, he has already forgotten the concept that only those that has a certain background and strength could walk the path of a magician. It looks like greed and narcissism really could fog up the vision of people. Hinajiku's disgusted at the pig as well. She pointed Shiro Sakura at the bastard. It seems a beating is in order for you to listen properly to our demands. Haha, I think it's better if you girls think carefully about the repercussions of your actions. Lifting up Lyran, he grinned, and the two girls. Don't think just because you girls could settle a bunch of trash you can best me for sure, dismissing the fact that I'm a tier 5 warrior. The situation right now is very favorable for me. You jerk. She's incensed by his lowly display. Using a little girl as a shield and calling your own comrades trash. Humph, they don't even deserve being called trash. He snorted. Can't even deal with a bunch of kids. If I keep them they would only be a waste of my resources. If you guys didn't get rid of them, I would have. There is no need for trash of no value at my side. B.A.S.T.A.R.D. The two completely snapped. The only thing they want to do right now is to hack the F.U.C.K up into 10,000 pieces, but they couldn't, not in consideration of Lyran still squirming inside his grasp. Ha 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 ha. Smug laughs ensured. What's the matter? Cat got your tongue? I already said it doesn't matter as long as you obey me, then I guarantee the well-being of this little las.sie right here. Oh really? I'm so thankful for that. You're welcomed. Stopping in his track, a sudden sense of danger alerted him, and at the same time a silver blade appeared before his face. The aim is between his eyes. The cold gleam coming off the blade seemed like a viper getting ever closer to his face. His pupils contracted into pinpoint size while changing his smug face into that of terror in a snap of the finger. This is a desperate time, he roared and moved the dochi within him. He didn't care if his body started hurting from the sudden movement, but he desperately turned his head, dodging the stab with a hair-thin breadth. He dodged just in time, but he could feel the coldness of the blade when it brushed past his ear. Cold sweat dripped down from his forehead. He has never been this close to death before. His legs are trembling from the shock. Missing, the blade didn't move and stayed there, right beside his ear. He felt warmth radiating from a foreign hand touching his. It's completely unlike that of the cold steel. The hand that is touched is the one holding Lyran. Blue lightning danced and shocked him quite literally into yelping and releasing his hold on Lyran from the resulting paralysis. Another lightning magician. Impossible. He's a sword, is he not? Dochi and mana, how can they coexist within a human body? Incredulous at this spectacle before him, it slipped his mind that Wu Yan's not even using dochi or mana. The only thing he used is his sword skill and his esper power that relies more on computational power. Free falling like a doll, the hand's master quickly recovered her, chuckling at Ty Lee. His eyes on the other hand had an icy glare to them as he smacked Ty Lee with the side of his blade, sending him knocking into a tree. Yan, Mikoto and Hinagiku somehow knew that he would do something like this and took Lyran from him. They undid her binds and vigilantly watched Wu Yan to make sure he doesn't attempt anything weird. He wryly laughed, and he didn't try to defend himself. It appears the lowly ultimatum from before really upset the two girls. Uwa. The cloth gag removed, Lyran threw herself into Hinagiku's embrace while sobbing with tears streaming down her cheeks. She cried like she's trying to cry out her grievance. There. Hinagiku and Mikoto were fluid teared by her and frantically consoled the little loli. Maybe it's because the two girls gave her a sense of safety. Lyran ignored Ty Lee, who slowly got up from the ground and continued crying with an intensity that could make the sky fall and the earth crumble. While the two girls were sympathizing with her, this made Wu Yan have a headache. A girl's tear is the bane of him, even more so when it's a cute girl's. Dam.nit. You lit mongrel. He viciously glared at him as he picked himself up, spitting and maliciously grinning. You think you can win by ambushing me while I'm gloating? Very well, I will let you see the power of a tier 5, feeble ant. He forgot all notion about why he could use battle skills and magic. It was all drowned out in his anger. What's more, he's not even taking him seriously. In his perception, Wu Yan is too young, and even if he's a magician there's no way he could be stronger than him. the blow just now is nothing more than a lucky strike aided by the element of surprise. Therefore, still thinking he's hot s.h.i.t and had something embarrassed.s.sing like that happening to him, it's inevitable that he got mad at him. Only an ant and he dares sullying the shirt of a vice captain. He didn't mind Lyran being freed, just settle this b.a.s.t.a.r.d and then retrieving her, along with the two las.cs. As his confidence shot through the roof, the trio were rendered speechless at this stunt. Power of a tier 5. Please, we have a tier 6 and a tier 7 here. Oni-chan. A voice so soft it could made one lose strength in their leg came out from Lyran, who still had tears in the corners of her eyes. This shook him down to the core. He was that close to kneeling down to her while drawing out a swirly lollipop. The little loli known as Lyran pouted with a face so cute one would fight the world to bring back all its glory for her. She raised her head from Hinagiko's chest and sniveled while she looked at Wu Yan. Oni-chan, this person is very strong, even the guards were defeated by him, let's just escape. Lyran the little loli, TL, I swear to G.O.D one more Lyran the little loli and I will call the cops on the author, may be small, but she can tell between good and evil, who's the bad guy and who's the good guy. In her logic the ones who kidnapped her are the baddies and the big brother and big sister who came to save her is the good guys. Otherwise she wouldn't have jumped into Hinagiko's embrace like a little chick. Having seen Ty Lee's abilities firsthand, she was worried for the safety of the big brother and sisters. She's worried that they would end up like her guards, dead in the hands of Ty Lee. He didn't have mind-reading ability, so he didn't know what was going through her mind. T.L.I. called the cops. If he did, he would grab her by the collar and scream at her regardless of the lowly commandment. I'm not a good guy. Don't label people inconveniently. He could however hear the concerned tone from her words. He assured her with a smile before waving his neat no shana and training his sight on Ty Lee while curling his lips. Worry not, little one, this fat pig in an armor think he's so tough. I will inculcate the simple lesson of what happens when you think about messing with other people's women. Not for anything else and not for the mission or his personal gratification, just the sweet diabetic endearment of Oni-chan is reason enough to motivate this humble servant to draw. Moi shall slay the fat pig that made you cry by today. What did you say? Ty Lee blanched at his declaration. He's even more p.I.s. said off now. His eyes shone as he roared and released his dochi. Too bad his one-man show is promptly ignored by the present individuals. That's because Wu Yan also triggered Mikoto and Hinagiko with his declaration, tinting their cute face with a shade of pink as the two fidgeted and stuttered. Who's your women? Given of course, under a reaction were automatically translated as agreeing with his statement. He dares to say that even if he were to say this notion aloud he wouldn't fear the lumber axe. TL, though it says lumber axe, it can also refer to the various weapons used by the crazy chicks in Higurashi no Koro. No, I have not seen it, I have only heard that it's full of crazy chicks. Laughing out of nowhere, it looked like he would tear up any moment now, but no tears came. That's due to the fact that there's no room for such things, there's only a ton of fury and killing intention. Little b.a.s.t.a.r.d. Since you're so eager for death, let me do you a favor. Your women and your weapon, I shall receive them without restraint, ha 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 ha. Chapter 55. With dochi coming off of him in stream, Ty Lee drew his great sword from his waist. With a force which could possibly split mountain, he rushed at Wu Yan. You girls be careful and take care of the little one. He gestured to the girl while giving the least amount of attention to the oncoming Ty Lee. In the past it's always him on the receiving end when it came to level difference. At last, it's his turn to dish out the punishment. Hinagiko and Mikoto retreated with little loli. Ty Lee couldn't care less, quite the contrary, he was happy. In his mind, it's fortunate for him that the girls knew who they were messing with and chose to run, otherwise his awesome attack would be too powerful and might hurt them. That wouldn't be good because, ignoring injuries, if they died then it would such a waste since he hadn't had the chance to savor them. Still deluding himself with such fantasies, he raised his great sword while roaring with laughter. The sword then came down on Wu Yan while creating gale as it continued on its path. Not far away, the two girls didn't blink while watching the fight. Lyran also looked on in anxiety. "Sister, is it alright not to help big brother? That big guy is very strong, he killed all of Lyran's guards." Pale with fright as she remembered the scene of slaughter, she tried shrinking her body into Hinajiku's hug while tearing up again. Hinajiku stroked her long waist-length blonde hair while keeping her eyes on him. She tenderly comforted her with her hand. "It's alright, big brother can do it, don't get fooled by his stupid attitude, he's actually very strong. Very strong." Lyran, still unconvinced, looked at him while puzzled. "Stronger than that big guy over there." Mikoto spoke as she squatted down to lock eye with Lyran. "He's stronger than that annoying big guy." "Really?" She lifted her pet.I.te face and mewled. "Then does that mean big brother is going to win against the bad guy?" "Yep. He can definitely win," said the two in sync. From their words and tone one could tell they were speaking as if they were the ones doing the fighting. Curiously she watched Wu Yan as she murmured, "Do your best. Die. Little b.a.s.t.a.r.d." Tai Lirared as he mercilessly swung down with Do Chi swirling around the blade. The force was enough to make Wu Yan's hair flutter. One could surmise just how big a force it is. But, against this powerful attack, he ignored the attack. Tier 5 and Tier 6 is already a relatively high tier, hence the tier gap between now is completely different from the case of Hinajiku v Sharp Fang Hound, a case of Tier 2 vs Tier 3. Also, the difference between Hinajiku and Sharp Fang Hound is but 1 level, Tai Li however is 10 level lower than him. A whole F.U.C. King tier. He lazily lifted his blade to block the attack. The collision made a great jong as the blades met and the great sword's momentum is completely stopped. "Oh? Not bad, I can see why you have the B.A.L.L.S to challenge the great me, it looks like you some skill." Briefly stunned by this, he then laughed it off as he picked his sword up, spinning the blade he jumped at him looking like a berserker. "Let's how many attacks from the great me can you block?" His ear picking up the cringe-worthy boast, he swung Nitano no Shana against his flurry of attacks, completely blocking every strike and slash. He even had the leisure to sigh amidst this onslaught. During his stint as a reader of novels, he has come across this kind of C.O.C.Kya.S.S long AOTN type with IQ lower than potato type characters begging the MC to spank their punk ASS. Who would have thought now that he transported he would have the pleasure of dealing with this kind of folk? TL, long AOTN, for lack of close English meaning, it would be better to think of them as Mary Sue. These characters are commonly found in YY novels or wish fulfillment novels. Common traits including shallow character due to bad writing by the author, harem keeps adding up in the most contrived of ways, tons of brokakos, op as H.E.L.L, no brains, power level inflations, PhDs in A to Z but is stumped at every little issue etc. Thinking back, everything he sees this trope being played straight. His jimmies were so rustled that he wished he could turn into the MC and curb stomp the B.A.S.T.A.R.D coded B.A.S.T.A.R.D so they know their place. Now, it's the perfect opportunity but he can't find the heart to do so. Don't get him wrong, it's because this dude in front of him is too damn and amusing. Like a clown he brings a miss.E.M.E.Nt to those around them. Completely unaware they suck B.A.L.L.S, these M.O.F.O.S prance around without understanding that others are sneering at them. They still think they're hot S.H.I.T after all that, so it's really hard to get mad at trolls like this. Although, his performance is bringing down air quality, and it's a bit disgusting. And so under his powerful attacks the dust were swept up into the air along with them. He deflected one of his attack into the ground, the force was transmitted into the ground. As a result, dust pebbles and rocks flew everywhere, the two continued their exchange while making a total mess of the area. Hithithithithithit, dam.n. Why is it not connecting? He hacked and slashed at Wu Yan. In his mind, it should only have been 1 or 2 rounds before this little b.a.s.t.a.r.d turn into a meat paste under his sword, then his job would be to indulge in carnal pleasure. But, don't say it's just 1 or 2 round, this d.i.c.k sword fight has been going on for few hundred bouts now and there's still no sign of the little p.r.i.c.k turning into meat paste. What's more, the p.r.i.c.k is using very half a.s. said footsteps and swings to completely nullify his attacks. He feels like he might just lose at any moment now. He has already expended a big half of his doqi and the guy isn't even sweating, let alone consider his doqi amount. In a manner similar to taking a walk in his garden, he's not fazed by his changing patterns, they were completely ineffective against him. What kind of joke is this? I am a tier 5 warrior. How can my attack not work against a little brat? I don't believe this s.h.i.t. He roared frantically and put in more doqi while hastening his a.s. salt. It finally managed to put a bit of pressure on Wu Yan. Oh my, not bad, I'm starting to feel it now. He could feel a bit more strength coming from his great sword in contact with Nitano no Shana. At last, he's grinning. Pulling his sword outwards, he shoved away Ty Lee's great sword and then backed a few steps away as he sneered at Ty Lee. Our strength should only be a tier apart, it's significant, but if you can't even put up a bit of resistance then that would be just too damn pathetic. Listening to him, he flinched before frowning and going full retard. I see, just a tier away? So you're a tier 4, a peak 1 at that. That's why you could survive and kill those worthless mobs from before. He almost broke out in laughter when he heard him. It would be better to call him a pig at this point, they already fought for so long and he already dropped such hints at him, yet he still arrived at this kind of conclusion. How g.o.daily, no, how swinely g.o.daily. TL, when referring to how g.o.daily stupid he is was used, which roughly translate into he's really g.o.daily. This is a cla.s.sick line from Detective Derenji where his sidekick always kiss his a.s.s with this line whenever the protagonist makes a major breakthrough in a hard case. Looking at him all speechless, Ty Lee felt pleased. He then proceeded to mock him. To attain tier 4 at such an age, and what's more a peak at that, you could call yourself a genius, but it's just too bad that tier 4 and tier 5 are not comparable and the gap between them is too wide. It's not something you could overcome even if you're at the peak. As a tier 5 it is but a mere trifle to kill you. He beamed, like a sun he beamed, he can't help it, his face distorting while trying to hold back his urge to rough-copter. Yep, that's right, you're so correct. The tier gap is indeed a b.i.t.c.h. His weird expression made Ty Lee a.s. assume that it's because he's so terrified that he cracked. Like a baboon he laughed, his laughter was one such anyone could tell he's very proud of himself at the moment. He then turned to him again. Now that you know what reality is right now, it's still not too late to surrender. Hand over the 3 girls and I will let you live and you can be my bodyguard. Everything he said is true, he really felt that way about him, that's why he put it like that. In his eyes, he who could reach tier 4 peak at such an age is indeed gifted. He might even be able on par to those n.o. blessed disciple. In the future, should he break through to tier 5 and perhaps even tier 6, then a lot of doors would open up for him. One would raise the question of loyalty at this point, but being the complete and utter moron he is, it slipped right past him. In his elementary deduction, surrendering equals submission, and he would be under his control for eternity. The oaf stepped onto a landmine and he didn't know. Again. As the dude was still spouting, now that you know what reality is right now, it's still not too late to surrender. Wu Yan still all smiley, but when he said hand over the 3 girls he turned very baleful. Mikoto. Hinajiku. He startled everyone with his yell. What's wrong? You need help. Mikoto walked forward towards him. Mikoto, Hinajiku. Still very menacing, he made his intention known in a very plain tone. You girls along with the little one, close your eyes. Close our eyes. They blanched at his request. Why? Because let's just what's going to happen moments later is going to be brutal and not suited for young audience. As his words transferred into their ears, they understood the implication, they hugged and closed their eyes while also covering Lyran's. Turning into a line of mirages, he disappeared and manifested in front of Tylee with deadly eyes as Tylee froze his smile at his sudden actions. He gave him a very icy grin. You're planning to lay a hand on the two, huh? I must say. Grasping the handle, he continued. You really like digging your own grave. Done with his word, he raised Nitano no Shana and swung down at him in a flash, disarming the F.U.C.K. He didn't dither during the entire process. Insert sound of B.I.T.C.H getting shanked here. Replaying a scenario in Are You There G.O.D? It's me, Margaret. In a different tone, blood streamed down and it was quickly followed by Tylee screaming at the top of his lung while holding his chopped off hand. Already rendering the F.U.C.K in such a state, he sheathed the blade and then putting it away in the S.P.A.Ce ring. Standing in front of Tylee, he declared with a low tone at him. No zo no die, since you're so H.E.L. bent on the highway to H.E.L. I will let you go out in a very fancy style. Lightning flash appeared and dust started flying, sparks and lightning crackled from his body as they arced around him while making thunder symphony. He raised his hand and the ground had a minor tremor as small grains of iron dust came pouring out, forming waves around him. Motioning to the cloud, iron sand went up into the air and mixed around in the air. It didn't take long before they formed numerous iron swords. Forming the iron swords, he commanded them with a yell and they flew at Tylee like arrows from bows. One by one the swords pierced Tylee, who was in so much pain that he simply could not make any respond as the swords pierced his body, limbs, and brain. Fresh blood splashed upwards into midair. Chapter 56. Bam. With a low thud, Tylee's Western name, as per Hendra's suggestion, fell to the ground as he closed his eyes. Perhaps even in his next life the scene where countless black swords rained down upon him would remain a nightmare. Ding. M3 completed. Obtained EP, IP, AP, SP10000. U. He felt a slight dizzy sensation accompanied by pain coming from his head. Holding his head, he groaned in pain while his eyes went bloodshot. He got down on one knee as he shook his head. After a bit the dizzy feeling alleviated and he break out a bitter laugh. That just now is a symptom of overusing Esper powers when computational power cannot handle the load. Against the great snake monster, Mikoto could use this level of iron sand sword with a flip of her hand. If she wants to use it, she well could, and if she wanted to retract them, then the same applies as well. He subconsciously thought that he could do the same just as easily as well. The reality, however, is different. Everyone is unique. There is something one cannot do even if others could do it, at least not right now. He couldn't. Mikoto could manipulate her power like it's nothing, but when it came to him he suffered backlash after just one usage. What to say? To compare oneself to another would be the death of oneself. TL, not sure of the existence of an English equivalent, but the proverb basically says that one shouldn't compare one's weakness to another's strength, as that would be pointless, not to mention everybody has something they are good as well as bad, and also the different in circu.misstances, be happy with what you have, etc. This situation could have been foresaw. Mikoto is LV5 and he's LV4, to forcibly use a skill 1 the scale of a LV5, can one really expect it to go that smoothly? It's fortunate that he had Kendo Master, a strong physique and mental fort. Otherwise he wouldn't have been able to pull that stunt and would end up with a head-splitting headache while rolling around on the floor. Inside the ability list, LV5 cost 10 times for than LV4. That's the difference between the two. Why is there no sound? Terry's death and him being occupied with his headache made the surrounding very quiet, After a bunch of swish sounds, it went silent. Hinajika felt odd that she didn't hear Wu Yan's sound. Hey, Yan, what's going on? Squeak something. It's been a while and there's still no sound. This made Mikoto anxious, but Wu Yan said not to look, so she didn't open her eye. TL, that moment when you realize Mikoto could sense electromagnetism in her vicinity. He said it, what's going to happen is going to be ugly. It's safe to say the two we're a bit scared by this. The two tsundere don't like losing to ab.l.o.o.d.y scene, but being girls and his tone sounded off, they didn't dare open their eyes. He was rendered momentarily speechless at Mikoto's line. What can he do but respond to her in a helpless way? What do you mean by squeak? Only mouse do that sort of thing, okay? The two feud. He's okay by the sound of it, but Mikoto's still not pleased. What's the deal? Say something if you're done. Why the suspense? What the? Railgun be railgun, so tsundere. She's clearly worried, but she won't say it straight. Would it kill her to say a few sweet lines? Are you done or not? Hinajiko is also getting a bit upset. It's one thing to be afraid and another to be curious. The surprise-like element is making her all itchy inside. Almost. Blowing them off with a few nonchalant lines, he wielded the iron sand and threw the pincushion body into the woods not far away. Human body could not be sold for points, so he chose this alternative. He felt a bit better about this seemingly inconvenient feature. If the system also allowed exchange of bodies, then he would quite frankly feel a bit disturbed. This is an issue of principle rather than economical. The other bodies weren't given much thought. The two girls already saw it. The scene is still within their bearable range. Unlike Terry, who became a porcupine and had salsa coming out of his head. It's qualified to the extent of acceptable. If it were to be a question of doing it, then that would be. They're just 14-15-year-old girls, so. G.O.D. bless fill in the blanks. Alright. The two girls instantly opened their eyes when they heard him, like they would lose out on something if they were slower by even a second. He didn't know what to say at this. Why is your eyes so red? When they saw the dilated blood vessels, Hinajika practically jumped at this as she pursued him. She flinched before recalling something and affirmed it. You overused your powers, didn't you? Seeing her unwavering eye, he knew he couldn't get S.H.I.T past the radar before he smiled at her. Just a bit. Do you want to turn into a vegetable? She raised her tone at him while being all furious at him. Are you stupid? I told you before, if you overloaded your power and your computational abilities couldn't keep up, then worst case scenario you would fry your brains, didn't I? Fried brains. Surprised, Hinajika turned at Wu Yan with eyes that were growing dangerous by the second. How would I know? Under their scrutinizing gaze he felt a bit threatened as he tried to mutter his way out. Mikoto could do it before without a problem, so you see. I'm a LV5. You're a LV4, we are not comparable. Listening to his feeble excuse, her anger made her teeth very itchy. She so wanted to go up and give him a bite to let the jerk know what pain feels like. Okay, they won't be a next time, one time is enough anyway. That kind of cool A.S.S ability, he had no regret after using it once. The scene where hundreds of black sword rained down, if it wasn't for the fact that he didn't recognize the familiarity of this, he would probably have added mongrel to his one-liner. Reference to this hero over here. NNNN, the Bada.S. Series of the big dog with the biggest and numerous bling of the heroes, except the fact that he's using multiple I.2 of treasure and he's just using a bunch of black swords, they would look the same. Given the chance to redo it, he would still have done it. It might be a bit too risky though. Since he already used it, until he's LV5 he won't be using it again. As much as it's important to pose, one needs to take care of one's life. The two still didn't seem like they would let him go even if he promised they wouldn't be a next time, so he tried another approach, change the subject. Oh yes, after the rounds of battle from before, Hinajika's level should have risen a lot, yeah. She's still low-leveled, so after killing 19 Tier 3 Sharp Fang Hound, 20 Tier 3 Mercenaries and 1 Tier 5 Vice Captain, her level should have risen a lot from 19. She can't help checking her level when she heard that. She was stunned by what she saw. She then beamed. Yep, it has risen all right. I'm 35 now. Level 35, huh? Not bad, that means we didn't fight so many mob for nothing. He nodded. 39 Tier 3, 1 Tier 5, just from this Tier 2 Hinajiku ought to have such a big haul. TL, the arrows are not reflective of the most recent battle result, they reflect the total change that occurred since the last saved version of their status table. Chaotic Return to Horizon Waltz, Electromaster, LV4. Nitano no Shana, C grade, Conceptual Dragon Armor, C grade. Misaka Mikato, Katsura Hinajiku. 51000 rightward arrow 21000. 8300 rightward arrow 8170000. 81000 rightward arrow 101000. 11000 rightward arrow 26000. 45 rightward arrow 50. 68 rightward arrow 69. Katsura Hinajiku. None. D rightward arrow C. D. Shiro Sakura, D grade. 17 rightward arrow 35. Closing the system status list, he delightfully grinned. Their team is now composed of a Tier 5, a Tier 6 and a Tier 7, this lineup cannot act as they please in Silveria, but it's definitely enough if they just traveled around. Now that she's level 35, Giant Beast Forest would yield little benefit for them as of now. Naturally they wouldn't be able to get a lot of experience points if they don't venture deeper into the forest. This would be very risky as they don't know how strong the foes are. If a level 80 were to come along, then it would be him who's hunted down by the beast rather than the other way around. Lyran, who had been listening from the start, finally lifted her head and asked the trio with curiosity contained within those jewel-like eyes. What's level and what's leveling up? Her voice called back the three, still fascinated with their status. The three exchanged look. They completely forgot about this lowly. Hinajiku awkwardly looked away. Wu Yan and Mikato are still excusable, but Hinajiku is not, because the little lowly Lyran has been in her arms the whole time. It's nothing, little girl, you have misheard us. Trying to throw a fast one over her, he went, haha, he's betting on her having an element of airheadedness. The matter regarding system must be kept a secret under all but the most secure circuit. If this were not done properly, forget people drawn in by the prospect of system, people might even capture them to dissect them just for being transportee. Is that so? Looks like he got half the bet right. She's not airheaded, but she's confused and naive. She's full of question mark at his words, but she chose to believe him. Oh yes, little girl, why were you captured by those bad guys? Hinajiku stroked her back while expressing her puzzlement over her situation. She can somehow guess that Lyran is not someone ordinary. An average Jane wouldn't have guards, and she said it herself that her guard were all killed by Terry and his gang. Lifted by Hinajiku, she puffed her cheeks while looking a bit upset. Lyran don't understand as well. Lyran just came out for a stroll and those bad guys came and caught me. They even killed my guards and took me here where there's no bed, no food. Lyran was so miserable. With a tone characteristic of a lowly, she kept puffing her cheek as she explained her circuit.misstances to the trio. He didn't know Hinajiku and Mikato is thinking, but he's ruminating a thought that he feels must be shout out loud. 2F.U.Kanmoii. Of course he kept it in his heart. If he were to really shout that out, he would be stabbed and electrocuted for sure. Do you know where's your house? Mikato lowered her height by placing her hand on her knees as she asked the little girl. She's pretty sweet when talking to little kids. NNNN. Nodding her little head, she clamored. Lyran knows the way home. I will be dam.ned. She could make sense of directions, unlike the him who came to this world that time. F.U.C.Kid, No further comment on that Sing history. Yan, what do we do? Though she's asking him, he could tell from her yellowish-green eye that she has already decided what their next moves are. Confirming the same intention in Mikoto, he said no more and merely gestured to them. Have you girls not decided already? Is there even a point to ask me? Now that it's settled. Mikoto stood at the front of the party as she pointed forward with a bossy attitude. We depart. To send the little girl home. Observing her antic, Wu Yan felt like asking her. Yeah, sure, it's that direction, girl. Chapter 57. It's all fun and games to say depart, but this place is a.b.u.t. Thole out in the wilderness, a lot of s.h.i.t. hostiles be living here. On their way out, Wu Yan, Mikoto, Hinajiku and the super curious Lyran, who wouldn't stop asking what's that and what's this, were met with a lot of annoyance. Although the monster encounters were low-leveled, they gave the four a substantial amount of income. These small fries aren't even worth his consideration to sell them up to the system. He turned these poor f.u.c.ks into the most primitive of materials by cutting out their materials and stripping them down by the skin and muscles. They are going to be sold for gold. Money isn't everything, but without it there's a lot of things one can't do. Yeah, he earned a ton while doing mercenary mission, but when it came to money, could one really complain they have too much of it? Don't forget the 20x magic crystal from Sharp Fang Hound. If he were to sell them all off, traveling expenses would be the least of his concern. What about their body? Well, anyone who likes them can go pick it up. They are just roaming around the outskirts of the giant beast forest, and they're within his active area when he was a mercenary. So even if he's a bit poor in sense of direction, these 2 months of mercenary life has at least taught him how to traverse this part of the area. In just 4 or 5 hours, the four managed to make it out and came to the supply town. Suppose there was a person who knew Wu Yan in this small town. From his perspective, Wu Yan would seem to have only left for 3 or 4 days, but the hypothetical person wouldn't know that he hasn't came here for a month now. He's not even in this world during the elapsed time. A street where there's actual traffic, it made a clear disparity between here and that h.e.l. hole. There's a lot of liveliness in this place. It's soothing to say the least, since one could see that the 3 girls had been giggling all the while in this town. It's an and a world that has dochi, magic and the likes. But Silveria's casual attire differs not much from 21st century fashion. There's short-sleeved shirt, t-shirt, skirts, coat. The details differ, but it's not to the extent that the original world's clothes won't fit in here. It's the reason why even though the four were wearing their usual cloth they don't seem out of place. TL, possible minor error in Ra here, Lyran is not a transportee and Ra said original clothing, which meant the possibility of Wu Yan buying clothes for her is nil. That said, there's still people who would head turn at the sight of them, though they are indeed looking at them. It's more apt to say they're looking at the 3 girls. TL, wait, I thought Lyran's 10, the 3 pretty little creatures are bound to catch some eyes sooner or later. What he does succeed in attracting though, is numerous admiring jelly hateful glare. The 3 doesn't seem to mind being the center of attention, they went about doing their own thing and walking at their own pace. But of course, this is the case. One of them is the famous Heikuo Academy's student council president, another one is a LV5 numbering only 7 in the entire academy city with population 2.3 million. This much attention is normal in their everyday life, they got used to it ages ago. The little lowly Lyran on the other hand didn't even notice anything going on, as if everyone around her are nothing but cabbages. The only one feeling off would be him. He is following behind the trio, but if one were to examine a wee bit closer they would notice his eyebrows jerking from time to time, tipping off others how disconcerted he is. It's unquestionable that he has a face thicker than the Great Wall of China, but against the pedestrians that look like, quite frankly, he's scared. He fits the bill, what with him enjoying an experience only a winner in life could enjoy, one man with 3 ladies. TL, down here is the lovely gentleman in action. Under this kind of gaze, the four made it inside a larger than norm commercial shop. They came here to sell the monster loots, of course. The stuff here are all adequate, they weapons, magic crystals, and herbs. Almost anything could be found here, limited to low tiers, that is. Everything below level 20 could be found here. Level 30 stuff is a bit rarer, and naturally they aren't any armaments here. It's my first time seeing such a weird shop. Mikoto is currently looking over the various monster part inside a GLA.S.S display. She said so after looking around a bit more. This is weird. Lyran is nibbling on her finger while hodling hand with Hinajiku. She can't understand why Mikoto said that. A shop that deals with demonic beast material and magic crystal could be said to be the most numerous on this world. Every city would have them. The little lowly Lyran herself has visited this kind of shop many a times before. How are they weird? She couldn't possibly figure out the answer with that young mind of hers. Mikoto smiled at her without saying anything. What should she say? Buying clothes and jewelry? Isn't that even more odd? Hinajiku understood Mikoto's intention. She didn't say anything as well because her thoughts were exactly the same as her, very intrigued by the exotic surrounding. The theme around here is martial, everything is battle or combat related. He walked over to the counter as he continued. Demonic beast materials could be used to make equipments and armaments, herbs could be made into various potions and drugs, magic crystal has even wider applications, so this kind of shop would exist without doubt. Sister Mikoto, is this your first time here? Lyran pulled at her skirt while saying so. She's not feeling imposed or anything, her eyes were still darting around the whole place. I never had the chance, you see. Lyran brightened up with the thought as she beamed at her. Let me take you sightseeing, Sister Mikoto. She pulled Mikoto along while running to the other side. Hold up. Hinajiku ran after the two soon after, throwing a few peek at Wu Yan. It seems shopping is really a girl's thing. He felt helpless looking at the three girls running around. He reached the counter and there was a sharp-looking man standing there. What can I do for you? The man gave him a business smile. He nodded to him. I want to sell some magic crystal and demonic material. It's routine transaction to have clients like these coming in to sell their stuff. The sharply dressed man didn't look like it's his first time dealing with this either. He quickly responded to him. Well, would you please display the goods you wish to sell so we can take a look at them? Here. He looked around while raising his brows. It's not that he's afraid of being seen or anything, it's just that the counter is too small and he can't fit all the materials on here. He has among his inventory, parts which would take up a lot of place. The man A.S. summed the former as he A.S. assured him with a laugh. It's my fault, please follow me to a room. Nodding, he turned to Hinajiku and Mikoto. You girls wait here, I will go deal with the matter regarding disposal of magic crystal and demonic beast materials. I understand. Go. Come back soon, brother. Let's go. The man led him inside a room after telling another attendant that walked past to take his place. Gesturing for Wu Yan to sit down on the chair, the man then asked to see the merchandise. Dear customer, may I see the items? Knocking on the table to test for its integrity, he glanced around the room while nodding in satisfaction. If it's here I should be able to take it out. While the man is still trying to figure out what he meant by that, he waved his hand and a big pile of material fell out from midair, literally littering the room with its content. This. Looking at the whole floor of material, the sharply dressed man can't help dropping his jaw as Wu Yan awed him. He shouted in a broken tone. Spatial item. He's awed not by the sheer amount of material, the quant.I.Ti is great but the quality isn't that high, he has seen better quality goods than this. Rather, he's surprised by his spatial item, an item that could take out or store away items. This is a very special item. Flabbergasted at him, Wu Yan savored his reaction. Living on this world for 3 months, he knew just how rare spatial items is. The rarity is relative to normal humans though. As rare as they are, spatial items can still be made. As long as they are a master craftsman they could do something of this level no problem. The reason behind their rarity is not the method of production, it's the material or more specifically spatial stone. The condition for their existence is very severe, hence the rarity. The spatial stone form in a place completely devoid of any life. As long as a life form appear in the area where spatial stone form, even if it's only a small gra.s.s, there will never be a second stone to form in this place. In other words, once a place has spatial stones and is subsequently cultivated by humans, then that place will never see a spatial stone form again. In Silveria, is there a lot of place where there's no life at all? And how many of them would have spatial stone? And that concludes the story of why spatial items are expensive as hell. As long as they're a big shot from a big family they would normally have spatial items. Take Lulu as an example, she has a spatial bracelet, Fei Fei also has one. There's other people who like them are big shots with big background. Other than that there's tier 7 warriors and magician who might have spatial items, might in the sense that they might not as well. The bigger the S.P.A.ce inside the bigger the spatial stone has to be. Wu Yan don't look like a tier 7 warrior or magician, so he can only be a disciple of some 1% family. The man lowered his waist subconsciously until he was just a little shorter than him, he turned into a kiss ass. Could you please set a price for this lowly me to evaluate? Do as you wish. He retrieved a bag from his spatial ring and set it over to him. This is a bag of magic crystal, I would like to dispose of them together. It shall be done, please wait a moment. He received the sack and bowed to him before doing his thing. He looked poised sitting there sipping tea like a sir. It's not because he liked posing, he understood what the man was thinking and could predict this change in behavior should he flash his spatial item. He had a hidden motive for this. At least he wouldn't be scammed, and who knows, he might even get a bit more than the usual going bid price. Chapter 58. Time flied as Wu Yan sipped tea and the man worked through the mountain of inventories. Can't help it, there's just too much stuff to go through, it's low quality but it still require quite the amount of time to go through. He's not in any hurry. He reckons that the girls are still happily doing their thing. Esteemed client. At one point the man finally sifted through the loot, he wiped off the sweat on his forehead as he came to his side while lowering his body and reporting his result. The appraisal is done, your materials and magic crystal total up to 199,500 gold, if it's your wish we can even round it up to 200,000 gold. Would you like that? 200,000 The price is not that different from the market quote he read before, it had a premium above bid price if anything. Very well, let's settle it like that. The man laughed and bowed out before coming back again with a golden card in his hand. He offered it with both hands to Wu Yan. Glancing over the 200,000 number on the card he nodded in satisfaction as he stored it away in his ring. 200k gold, it would be absurd to plop down the entire amount in front of him, screw 200k, just 100,000 would make a small mountain of gold. Not everyone had spatial items like Wu Yan, that's why there exist bank like insti.tuitions on Silveria as well, rather than bank they're more like gold stashes really. TL, bank in Mandarin as you might know is, with a silver character. He replaced the silver with gold to make it, bad joke that cannot be translated across language. This golden card is like a credit card, Raw said credit card, but it functions more like a debit card, holding it is equal to holding a ton of gold, it's definitely a lighter solution to pay bills, just let the guy swipe some point and voila you're done. It even comes with a line showing how much is in it, in a way it could qualify as a small magic. He has never seen golden card before but this kind of insti.tuition he has heard before. That's why nothing awkward like gawking at golden card happened, g.o.d it would so embarrass.s.sing if people mistook him as a person from the boonies, Heck, even people from the Bunas has heard of golden card. Finally done with the disposal of loot, he pondered before asking the man. Oh yes, do you deal in armaments as well? He has risen a lot in level since he ate the combat buter instance dungeon. The level 20 something him could not compare to the him at the end before transitioning back to this world. And by extension he outgrew his equipment and thus bought 2 C-grade equips, and this made his D-grade Kusanagi sword obsolete. He planned on handing it over to Hinajiku, but who would have thought she already had Shiro Sakura, which had the same grade. Well, this shed a bit of light on the origin of Shiro Sakura. It's not given to her by Wu Yan. Since then Kusanagi sword has been resting in his S.P.A.Ce ring. He planned on keeping it as a memorabilia since this thing is his first equipment, signaling that his life would change forever from that point on. He had a change of mind when he realized there are other things that had memorable characteristic which outweighed a D-grade equip like Kusanagi sword. Example. How about the 2 safety shorts from before? Therefore, he wants to sell off Kusanagi sword. Nonchalantly dropping such line, unaware that this caused the man to almost drop his jaw to the ground. The guy could not handle the situation as he looked choked for words, and he kept stuttering as well. Est. Esteemed client, you plan to sell armaments? Like an insensitive guy, he sighed inwardly. He knew they were rare. What he didn't know is the extent, and he never could understand, not with his system that could buy any equipment of any grade as long as he had the points. It can't help non? He can't just let it lie there forever, and Hinajiku's not a Nitoryu. Mikoto doesn't want it either. In the whole wide world of Silveria, he's probably the only one with such first world-esque problem. D-grade, that's mainstream armament. One that only tier 5 could reasonably be expected to wield. And he's dissing about how cheap the thing is. Probably if those tier 5 supers heard him they would cough up blood at their weapon being tagged with #shit. What? You guys don't have the capacity? He grinned at the man. The shrewd man flinched and lowered his head while breathing out before bitterly laughing. Esteemed client, our firm has dealt with armaments before, but those were dealt with by auctioning. If one were to use the medium by which normal equipment are dealt with, then it would be inappropriate given the nature of the item, you see. He could somehow guess it's something like this, so he just nodded. That was just him asking tongue-in-cheek. Seeing as he doesn't particularly mind, the man clenched his teeth and tried negotiating with him. How's this? You let our firm be the middleman and we will deal with all the auction procedures. After that we will only take 5% as procedural fees. What do you think? How's my Harry D.I.C.K, 5% M8? UBS.H.I. me. Taking a glimpse at the guy's expression, he shrugged. Although 5% seems a bit high, but the benefit of maximizing value of item in auction should justify the cost. Your firm also do auctions? He asked after thinking for a bit. No. We don't have any auctions. In this small supply town there's only one auction house. The thing is that our firm has ties with the auction house. Every firm in this town should have some tie with them actually, because it's through this way that we both could get a win-win. They deal with the stuff that would be too big for us to chew and get some benefit out of it, and we are able to give our clients better prices that reflect their true value. Now that he's more aware, he could care less about the firm. As long as he gets what he wants, the situation could settle itself another way. He flipped his hand and a sheathed Kusanagi sword appeared in his hand. He played with it a bit before placing it on the table and gesturing for the man to check it out. This is the aforementioned armament? Looks like a sword, but it's on the smaller side of the spectrum. The guy picked it up with 2 hands and examined it with caution, like he's handling his own baby or something. He partly drew the sword and squinted his eyes while inspecting it closely. He probed around like a shifty-eyed person. Done with that, he could only awkwardly scratch his head and chuckle as he continued. Terribly sorry, but this one has never seen such an armament and therefore could not appraise its grade. Since you brought it, I trust there is no fraud element here. He said another card to him. There will be an auction tonight. Your armament should appear there tonight, this card will let you in so you can watch the proceeding. If you see anything you like, feel free to go after it. Oh. He has heard of auctioning, the shady business, but he's never seen it for real, much less take part in one before. He can't help getting a bit excited as he received the card and stored it away. Alright, I will predict I.P.8 in it tonight. After the auction is over, this lowly one will go find you in your room to hand over the net amount. He's still a bit hung on the fact that he had spatial item on him. He didn't know what type it was, but he for one appreciate the aesthetic of a spatial item. He nodded and walked out under the admiring gaze of the shred man. Chapter 59. Walking out of the reception room, Hinajiku and Mikoto were still led around by Lyran, who acted like she's the adult here. They dashed around in this wide firm like a few lively sprites, leaving mirages here and there as well as bell-like laughs. This place didn't have any beautiful clothing or accessories, but there were crystals that looked shiny like gemstones and some medicinal herbs looked really odd. The three were very amused by all of this as they immersed themselves completely without restraint. They don't know just how animated they look. Wu Yan, who's taking in this sight, can't help but grin at this. Alright, we're leaving. He didn't want to disturb what they were doing at the moment, but honestly, a girl's energy in this kind of situation knows no limit. If he didn't put a stop to them, he's pretty sure they would need to stay a night at this place. That's why he's steadfastly ending their farce. Done with loot selling. Hinajiku pulled Lyran over. Mikoto also made her way to his side, still all smiley. Clearly she hasn't had enough yet. Yep, all done. He squatted down and tidied up Lyran's hair, which were a bit moist with sweat. Then where are we heading to after this? Mikoto still had her eyes on one of the GLA.S.S display, not even hiding her intention at all. Observing her antic, he shrugged her off while bitterly laughing. Ma, I know you girls still want to stroll around a bit more, but I can only say I'm sorry since we have yet to book a room in an inn. You should know there's almost no free room by night time, so we might have to sleep outdoors, you know. Booked full every night. Poking her chin with her slender finger, she looked a bit perplexed about the situation. They came here just a few hours ago. The streets were littered with people, but she could see most of them were locals, judging by their clothes, which seemed to be mostly stay-at-home clothes. Locals should have houses, right? They wouldn't need to stay at an inn, isn't it? So why would the inns be overbooked? Perhaps she too still wants to continue window shopping. She wrinkled her nose at the weird situation. Mikoto is also curious as to why they would be overbooked. Lyran just went along with the flow. The three kept their eyes on him. It's like they're silently suggesting that if he doesn't explain himself, then they wouldn't let this go no matter what. Speechless, he felt very pensive at the girls. Shopaholic element, almost any girl would have it on them. Even the two tomboyish tsundere girls can't escape the custom. Girls. You're missing something. Rubbing Lyran's head, he ignored her conflicting expression that had displeasure and comfort mixed in as he continued explaining. Supply Town during the day only have locals who's not cultivators going in and out, but this is a supply town near the giant beast forest, the only place in Silveria that has endless demonic beast SPA.W.Ning. How could they just only be normal people? Picking up the hint, they opened their eyes wide in realization. Clever girls, they instantly understood why the inns would be full by nighttime. He could tell from their face, so he chuckled. That's right, during the day, a majority of warriors and magicians or anyone with a little bit of competence in them would go hunting or harvesting for herbs inside giant beast forest. Come nighttime, those closer to the supply town or those who were done with their undertaking would return. Normally people wouldn't want to sleep out there in the wild yet. Thus, during the night most of the inn would be fully booked. I see. She nodded a few times and gave him a radiant smile so charming it shot through his heart. Resisting the urge to play with her cheeks, he used breathing technique to calm himself down while forcing a smile. Ma, I still remember when I didn't thought about this when I first came here. Suffice to say I won't be repeating the same tragedy again, so let's go find an inn, shall we? He's not s.h.i.ting you, during his short stint as a mercenary because he's too busy slacking off. Sometimes he would wander here and there until the sun has set. By then whenever he searched for an inn he would always arrive at the tragic end of gazing at the beautiful night sky outside. Sure, it sounds romantic to wander around the street late in the night with Kaiko-sama and Mikoto. Perhaps something lovely might even happen, but recalling the gruesome experience he went through after assisting them with their bodily hygiene purposes, a chill went up his spine and he abandoned the despicably tempting thought. So it's like that. She's dejectedly retracted her sight when she understood his argument. He could see the disappointment in her eyes. He winked at her with a smile. Don't give me that sad abandoned puppy face. It's now close to sunset. After we book our rooms there's an even more fun stuff waiting. Even more fun stuff. Mikoto, Hinajiku, and Lyran ticked. Lyran grabbed Wu Yan's hand while throwing him a very expecting look while sweetly purring. Big brother, what fun things are we talking about? Come on, tell me please. Once she heard the word fun she immediately pasted herself onto Wu Yan. He glanced at Hinajiku and Mikoto, C.R.A.P, they had the same curious and eager eyes. He retorted at them. Ugh, fine, it feels like the fun stuff is more important than where we are going to sleep. The three scratched their cheeks awkwardly and beamed at him, probably a sign of admitting their own fault. They immediately looked at Wu Yan with puppy eyes again. He rolled his eyes so hard his eyes almost turned into a dead fish's eyes. We are going to the auction tonight. Giving them the last of his white eye he could manage to muster up as he said so. Auction. When Lyran heard him she excitedly jumped up, she then elatedly pestered him. An auction? Big brother, is it the one with an old man standing on a stage holding a wooden hammer while shouting going once? That kind of thing. Wu Yan is stumped for words. He looked at the jumping loli within his pupils. It's an understatement to say he's shocked at this, he's rustled by this. Hinajiku and Mikoto were startled by his reaction before they broke out in snickers. What's the matter? Did Lyran say something wrong? The two were laughing so hard they started holding their stomach, hard-pressed. He's at a loss of what to do. Meanwhile, Lyran tilted her head with a bunch of question mark floating around her as she stick out her tongue. Harumphing, Hinajiku walked to Lyran's front and squatted down. She looked serious on the face but her eyes said she's still very humored. She rubbed Lyran's head while giggling. Little Lyran, an auction is where a lot of people gather together to bid for something. The auctioneer does not have to be an old uncle, it could be a beautiful big sister standing there as well. Also, the auctioneer needs to shout the price for 3 times, not just 1 time, before they can end the deal with a smack of the hammer. Not sure if she gets it, but Lyran sternly nodded her head while hurrying. Are we going there tonight to buy something? Not necessarily buying. Mikoto stopped her giggling and looked at Lyran. But it's going to be super exciting over there. Exciting. Practically boiling with buzz, she turned and hurrahed. Brother, please take me, I want to go, I want to go, I want to go to that lively place. Okay, geez, I understand. He had a moment of silence for those poor auctioneer uncles for about a second before holding Lyran's hand and walking towards the exit. Let's go, first, to find an inn. The four made their way out of the firm and towards an inn. Chapter 60. When the night fell, the supply town lit up in various colors. One wouldn't think the whole town is dim at all, it looked like the town is in a festive mood actually. Every household, every inn would light up their magic lanterns. The people on the street didn't decrease, in fact it increased a lot more. Inside the shops and stalls were customers, the volume of which were more astounding than those during the day. No matter how grand or beautiful this town is, it is still in nature a supply town, and during the day, including those with special circuit. Warriors and magicians would go train and slash or hunt inside the giant beast forest. Also during the day, those inside the town are mostly those who can't use dochi or magic. During the night, those close to town would return to rest. Those who would camp many days out in the woods would restock and depart next morning. Basically, there's more people during the night than during the day. Leading Mikoto, Hinajiku, and Lyran out of the inn, when the girls saw the street filled with myriad of colors, Pika they went as their eyes had stars inside them, Lyran's jumping excitedly at the sight of the beautiful street and the sheer amount of traffic. Pretty. So pretty. It's so much more shinier than the ones back home. Like a horse unleashed, she can't wait to squirm into the ma.s.ses. Wu Yan, who knew exactly what the little girl is thinking, dragged her back with one hand. Big brother. Why are you holding onto Lyran? Let Lyran go and play. She pouted while squirming as she tried to escape his hand. We all know it's futile, level 50, if he didn't want to let her go she ain't going anywhere. TL, what's going on in my mind as I translate the next paragraph? Sato Kyakuin Domo, think you're perverted and can't do anything but fantasize about pervy stuff? You're wrong, and this author can prove it to you through his work. I learned so many things. Feeling the fury of the weak claws going poka poka on him, he bitterly laughed at her and feeling very helpless at the same time. I say, little Lyran, there's so many people here, if you were to charge into the crowd and get yourself lost, what would we do? She stopped pounding him after she heard him. Dissatisfied, she puffed her cheeks at him. Humph, bad brother, not letting Lyran play, Mina. He would cry if he had tears right now, this little loli. Why does he feel like she's harder to please than a queen? She had the ability to turn right and wrong, black and white on themselves. This level of ability could very well rival that of Hinajiku and Mikoto's tsundere. Now. Hinajiku grabbed Lyran from Wu Yan's hand while she tried coaxing her. Be a good little girl, we still have the auction to go to, you know. Yes, auction. Her eyes brightened again as she celebrated by herself at the side there. Let's go then. Mikoto took the lead, at a loss of what to say about her. Hinajiku already went ahead of him while chatting and giggling with Lyran. Watching the three immersed in their own world, he feels soothed by the scene. It has only been a few days since he saw them smiling, but it feels like it has been a while since he saw them laugh. Since summoning Mikoto, it wasn't long before Hinajiku and Mikoto followed him into the monster cave expedition. In there, they slew monsters after monsters. To the girls who has never seen spilled blood, it's a miracle they haven't broke down. Hinajiku's a high school student who at the very most is only a bit familiar with kendo, a bit tomboyish. She's 15-year-old in the end. Mikoto, while boasting a tremendous power, is a resident in Academy City, which had its share of chaos and extraordinary. Relative to the other LV5, she might just be the only one of the 7 who still lives a rather normal lifestyle and a normal personality. Ignoring her powers, she's just a 14-year-old girl. In those days, they lived a life that could be said to be cruel. He still cannot bury the memory where the two were pale and a bit vacant, staring at the corpses of monster on the floor. After they entered Silveria, they were again dragged into a mission that required killing. His biggest concern, one that he's considering almost every chance he gets, is whether or not the girl will be able to retain their kind nature. Will they distort and warp into something he won't recognize if this kind of thing happen all the time? Is it really a correct decision to bring them by his side? Now that he's seen them laughing and having fun strolling the street like normal girls, he can finally lay to rest this question. What should he say? The girls were his biggest crush for a good reason. How can something small like this break them? Where's the faith he had in them? He placed his arm behind his back as he silently chuckled inside and followed the 3 girls who were different in size but were all pretty nonetheless. He felt really happy inside. Glancing over at Hinajiku, who's holding Mikoto by the hand, and Lyran in another while chatting with them intermittently. His smile widened uncontrollably at the sight of her giggling and chatting. That reminds him, since the lovely kiss he shared with her, her conquest progress seems to have stalled. Now that the two were inseparable, their relationship stopped there for some reason. Since second base has already been reached, it's about time for third base, is it not? And then it's that legendary base. However, Railgun over here needs a bit of stimulation to grow that relationship. Kaiko-sama had intimate contact with him already, but Railgun stayed at BFF level. Well, it can't exactly be limited to BFF, they were better than that, they had their life merged and he has seen her birthday suit a few times already. Better than friends but not yet lovers. Something like that. Is he going to let this slide? F.U.C.K No. Then isn't it about time to start making moves on Railgun? But if he made moves on her, what about Hinajuku? He has to make sure their relationship don't deteriorate even if it could not be moved up at the moment. Should he make move on Railgun, wouldn't that lower Hinajuku's? Suppose their relationship won't be affected, won't Kaiko-sama still be a significant C.O.C.K block on his conquest of Railgun? C.R.A.P, there's this kind of possibility as well. Simultaneous moves? Having a brilliant idea, he dismissed the thought by shaking his head. It sounds too good to be true, seems too good to be true, TL, Ra says YY again, se Sewell fantasy-esque, unrealistic. But it's just to that extent, simultaneous conquest is a joke, was only a normal otaku, not some G.O.D of conquest incarnate. TL, not sure if reference to Katsuragi-kuma. It's all dandy to two-time, but he's pretty sure he would absolutely die a fabulous death. Thinking up to this point he sighed at the tragedy, one could just read it from his face. Why not, push both of them down right away? He's surprised at himself for thinking something like this. Jumping straight to fourth base without proper foreplay preparations. He might just die without a body to bury. He wept. He didn't know that at the time, Hinajuku, Mikato, and Lyran were staring at him. The guy shook his head a bit, then looked tragic, and then sudden jumping in shock, and then suddenly looking worse than crying. The trio shivered at the same instance. Lyran tried squirming her pet.I.te body into the crevice between Hinajuku and Mikato, she pulled at their hands while feebly mewling. Sister Hinajuku, Sister Mikato, is brother broken? Mikato and Hinajuku exchanged eyesight and made a tacit agreement, they walked straight ahead and away from him while bringing Lyran with them. The most appropriate measure for this kind of situation is to pretend they don't know him. Chapter 61. To prevent Lyran from dashing here and there, Hinajuku grabbed her by the hand. While doing so she still kept her eyes on the various stalls and shops with a sweet smile on her face with no hint of hiding her own feelings. Mikato also wandered from stalls to stalls until she found the one stall that stopped her. All action stopped and she didn't budge from there. Wu Yan's curious what made her like that, so he glanced over to see what's the big deal. Once he saw it he can't help chuckling. That's a wrist guard that looked a lot like a frog, more specifically, looked well like a. Already going feline in the eyes, he can't hold it back anymore and he burst out laughing. He has seen it on screen, and now that it's right before his eyes, he still thinks it's very mo. It's very weird, how can someone turn their expression into that kind of face? He really can't hold back the laughter. Hearing his giggling, Railgun instantly returned to her senses. She turned back only to see a grinning Wu Yan, and thus she blushed, red to the tip of her ears. Plastering a face like she don't care, she kept her eyes on Gakoda wrist guard while dryly laughing. To think that on this world people would make something so childish, it's really. Even a kid would know she's faking it. With her peeking at the Gakoda good from time to time, he's wondering if she would peek so hard her eyes moved over to her ear. Yes, you're right, this thing is really childish, our great Mikato couldn't possibly like this kind of childish thing. The way he's saying that, one could tell he's being a smug a.s.s right now. Emphasizing the teasing tone, Mikato got even redder. He knows if he push it too far, Mikato would flip out and go ape s.h.i.t on him, so it's better to stop before that point. Alright, let's catch up to Hinajuku and co, otherwise we would get left behind. He grabbed Mikato by the hand and started walking away. Wait. She cried out for him to stop while looking very reluctant to leave the stall behind. She even had tears in the corner of her eyes. With her tsundere personality, she simply could not say I want it, so there she was getting dragged further and further from the stall by him. Until she could no longer see the stall, Mikoto turned her head back to notice her hand is being grabbed by Wu Yan. Facial temperature soaring, her forehead started crackling with biribiri while putting up a small struggle. What are you doing? Nothing much. He smirked at her blushing face, not giving her the chance to finish. He dangled something in front of her. Looking at the thing in front of her, she flinched before going vacant. Looking at it, her pupils shrinked into cat-like irises. That's a necklace, a crystal one. It had the shine characteristic of cut jewel. Under the light of various magic lamps, it's gleaming with a very beautiful glitter. It's captivating to say the least. It's very beautiful all right, but a mere necklace could not make her lose her composure. At most she would say it's pretty, but that's it. But this is no normal necklace. The crystal it has is different from what one would think. What really caught her attention is the Akota crystal on it. Beautiful crystal necklace plus a Gakota-shaped piece on it. Baekun baby, her childish heart got sunk by the torpedo, dragged into an eternal crystal H.E.L.L of Gakota. She can't escape. What's the scene like with her stupefied while looking like a cat? Who knows, but he's laughing out loud, that's for sure. His guffaw returned her to her senses. Seeing that he's laughing so hard he held his stomach, Mikoto wished she could find a gap in the hole to go into. She said the thing was childish before, lo and behold a change in heart the next instant. She got enraptured by the childish thing. So humiliating, listening to his laughter, she prepared herself for his mockings. He felt like she's not letting out any sound, so he figured it's about enough. He slapped his cheeks lightly and then walked over to her front. Seeing him walking to her front, Mikoto closed her eyes in a fluid U.S.ter while preparing to shout, "Yeah, that's right, I'm childish, I like Gakota, laugh it out." The next sentence from him cut her off. "It's yours." He dangled the Gakota crystal necklace with an angled smile in front of her face. Mikoto opened her eyes. It's still the same necklace, the same smirk, but the intention has changed into a different one. The people walking on the street still moved on incessantly as if they did not notice the situation going on between him and her. They brushed past the two, one by one, along with the light from the magic lamps. They collectively served as a contrast to make the whole scene very beautiful. The necklace swung left and right as Mikoto lost focus in her gaze. She didn't, however, turned into feline mode again. "For me." She sounded like she still can't believe the whole thing. He moved the necklace away and ignored her gaze that followed the thing as he pried her hand open and placed it into her palm. "This is custom made by me, it's for you." Yes, he has been planning this since he summoned her, finding the perfect timing to give her the thing. Her fondness of Gakota is through the roof and heaven-piercing. With an extent like this, it's just begging for him to capitalize it. He doesn't know how to cut or sculpt the crystal, but inside the system there's tons of weird and bizarre items. One of them is a crystal necklace that could be shaped by thought. This kind of basic crystal that could be morphed by thought requires only 100 item points, cheap and has value. Technically, he still made it. Didn't I say it? This kind of childish thing I don't fancy. Stuttering like a dishonest child, she babbled how she didn't like the thing, but her hands were grasping onto it very tightly. He looked at her with teasing face. He spread his palm in front of her. "Give it back then." Almost instantly she reflexively shouted at him, the clenched her hands while vigilantly guarding, staring at him. "I thought you didn't like it?" This tsundere girl, even if she died, she wants to die at tsundere, so very amusing and fun. He likes it, nothing he can do about it. She flushed red again while turning her head away from him. How can you take something you gave back? Since you made it so diligently, it's my obligation to keep it. If you like it, just say so, don't twist and turn so much." He helplessly sighed at her while retrieving his hand as expected. I don't particularly like it." "You don't have to fake it, Mikoto." He placed his hands on her shoulder as he turned her around to face him. He slowly spitted out the words at her rosy face. Mikoto, no one knows you more than me here, barring the ones from my world. At least no one ought know you more than me, your hobbies, your personality, I know it all. That's why there's no need for you to put up a front when your opponent is me. TL, where the H.E.L.L is Hinajuku, she letting this slide. He chuckled at her. Overlooking the fact that we spent all our time together, we are once connected in life, should we die then we die together, and if we're living then we're together, I will accept all of you and you don't have to hide anything from me. What's more, I don't dislike the you like this, in fact, I quite like it. Like. Poofy. In a manner similar to boiling water, steam started coming off her face. In her mind the word reverberated. Okay, we best catch up to Hinajuku and Lyran now. Ignoring her stunned self, he dragged her forward. Chapter 62. It's so big. Hinajuku's mouth widened when she saw the building. She's very impressed. Almost as big as a football stadium, the smooth white wall is dotted with magic lamps of a variety of color, giving the wall a sheen all its own. It made the whole building look like some sort of performance stage. If it's just big then Kaiko-sama won't be impressed. She's seen bigger, but a building so big and shiny, now this is a first. Lyran's cute little yapper agape as well, she's astonished by sheer magnitude of the building as well. But if one were to look at her slightly beaming eyes one could see that there's more excitement in her than astonishment. Wu Yan didn't give the building much thought, in stark contrast to the two buildings. Met. Chicks, me gusta. Return, I say. He felt speechless at the two girls who were still gawking at the building, so he squeezed their cheeks to drag their consciousness back to reality. Don't pinch my face. Although his affectionate action tinged her face red in multiple meanings, the tsundere Kaiko-sama did her best to act like she's mad. She glared at the guy while caressing her jowl. What a pretty place. Brother, are we going inside? Lyran ran to his side while hopping up and down like a bunny. It's like she's trying to compete for his attention, seeing as he's focused on Hinajuku. Awestruck by the mo that is Hinajuku rubbing her sore cheeks, he finally noticed the blonde hair waving around in his field of vision. He moved his gaze down only to see a puffy-cheeked little loli, Lyran. Acting like nothing happened, and because he didn't properly listen to her he tried diverting the subject with guilty feelings. Oh look, it's about time for the auction to start, let's head inside. When she heard they are going inside, she didn't try to use her glib tongue on him. Rather, she beamed and hurrahed on the spot. He held her tiny hand and walked towards the auction hall. Combing her hair with her hand, Hinajuku laughed as she stepped forward to catch up. She, however, soon stopped. She's looked at Mikoto in a very strange way, can't help it. Mikoto's very suspicious at the moment, her expression is very suspicious. Flushed, unfocused eyes, she looked like she's stuck inside a fantasy or something, a bit blank. She thought maybe it's because of the stage-like auction place, but on close examination that's not the case. Love-struck face, if she's really like that because of a building then she wouldn't be Mikoto. This face, it totally looks like a maiden in love. Too fishy. She had a bad feeling about this. It made her feel strange, but seeing as Wu Yan and Lyran is about to enter the auction hall, she had to ignore this strange feeling of hers as she walked over to Mikoto and pulled at her. The sudden voice hitting her eardrum made her jump and backpedal 2 steps. She saw a very doubtful Hinajuku looking back at her. Glowing red, she quickly hid her hands behind her back like she's got something to hide. What's up? A laugh so wry her tone when she answered her. Something's going on. Kaiko-sama shoujo, TL, maiden if you'd like, heart is telling, there's something off about Mikoto here. Kaiko-sama intercepted her from the front while toughening her face. She teased her. Mikoto, you're really suspicious, you know. Maybe it's because of her intonation, but Mikato's face became distorted and she drew a distance between the two instantly. What, there's nothing off at all, nothing, see. She ain't fooling anyone, in fact she just increased others' doubt. She's not restraining her who you tryin' to fool face, and Mikato saw it. Her eyes started to dart around, a sign that she's panicking. Mikato looked around hoping to find something to distract and move away from this subject. Picking up Wu Yan and Lyran near the auction hall, her eyes brightened and she forcibly smiled at Hinajiku. Annie, Yan, and the gang is about to disappear from our sight, we best catch up to them. Hinajiku stared at her. She stared at her so hard, Mikato started having goosebumps inside. She didn't dare to look her in the eyes. She mumbled at her reaction and reluctantly killed her curiosity before nodding and moving along with Mikato, who can't stop dry laughing towards Wu Yan. With a hand movement so fast it became imperceptible, she put on the necklace, and with the same speed she managed to hide it within her clothes. Feeling her chest and confirming the necklace's existence, she's satisfied. She made her way towards Wu Yan and Co as well. He flashed his VIP card at the guard and a female usher came out to bring them inside through a big door. Contrary to their expectations, behind the big door is not the humongous auction hall. Rather, it's a spiral staircase made of jade and stone going upwards. Under her guidance the four made their way up while surveying the surrounding and gasping from time to time at the sight. They didn't take note of the duration or length of the stair. Soon, another big door appeared before their eyes and the four walked in after the usher opened it for them. Noisy, is the word that came to mind when they entered. It momentarily stopped them. When they walked in, what appeared is a circular jade balcony with rails at the edge. There's a stair to either one of their sides. Lyran led the group with her energetic steps to the rail. They gazed downwards. Rows and rows of seats and aisle formed a cascade of circles. The seats in the front were half a man shorter than the ones behind them. From their POV the seats were like circles within circles, with the bigger ones engulfing the small rows. Easily able to fit 1,000 people, it is now quite close to being full. They were chatting away with glee. This is the source of the noise they heard coming in. At the lowest and most center point of the hall is a stone platform. On it, there's a red table glistening under the lights with mallet and block as well as a giant crystal ball on it. That's the place where the auctioneer is going to execute his duties, obviously. Taking in the scenery, it really widened their horizon. The trio only saw auctions on screens, never in real time at the scene. Even so, this place is so much grander than anything they have seen before. To be able to witness another world's auction hall, even if they walked away with nothing, it can't be said that they didn't experience anything worthwhile. What's the little lowly, Lyran, doing? Well, from her incessant cheering since coming here, it's safe to assume she's never been here often as well. Even if Lyran wanted to go down and sit at one of the seats, the usher led them to the stairs going up again. VIP rooms connected to each other to form a circular array, that's where they're going. Compared to the simple seats beneath, the room is well furbished and filled with luxury goods like sofa, fruits of various sizes. He can't help feeling impressed. It seems no matter the place, there's always special place and special rights. The attendant excused herself. Wu Yan and Co sat their down on the sofa and looked down. Part 4 of the series ends here. If you enjoyed it, please give us a like and subscribe so we can be motivated to make even better videos in the future.